back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Lead, and now Gorman. Cardinals have a bigger lead, and now Gorman, towering fly ball deep right. That one is way gone. A two-run homer. Lefty for Gorman. Strike three. That's going to end the game. Alcala with a curveball ends it for the Cardinals, who blast the Marlins 8-3. St. Louis's offense came to life late. Boy, the pitching was excellent.
That was. You got five.
That's what it sounded like last night on FanDuel Sports Midwest. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Brones, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Cardinals get the win. Really, the Marlins get the loss as much as anything else.
What?
Oh, boy. That is
some credit.
Bad baseball team, man. And I know their record is not all that dissimilar from yours. Boy, are those teams quite different to watch. They were throwing the ball away all game long. And I'm talking wild pitches, dude. The base running mistake at third base, where the guys at third very clearly going to have a chance to score on a bloop to right field, and just decides, you know what, I'm going to chill here. I'm really comfortable right here. Tries to tag up, waits too long. Boy, that is a bad baseball team. Cardinals took advantage, though. They get a win 8-3 last night on the road down in Miami in front of literally dozens of fans in attendance to watch the Marlins.
What was the announced attendance last night?
Let's take a look. Announced attendance. What would be your guess, T-Bone?
I think they averaged like 13.
A little bit of a disclaimer here. My dozens of fans, not that far off.
Oh, okay. So if they averaged 13, there's no way there was 13 there last night. I'll go like 7,000.
There's always a slight Cardinals bump, right?
No,
let's.
no,
You know what?
not
Let's
this
say
year. Not this year.
Announced. I'm going 11. I'm going optimistic.
No, not this year. There's no Cardinals bump when they're this bad.
8,500. 8,555 was the total attendance
and there's
announced
no way
last night for the Cardinals.
There's no way there was 8,500 people in that stadium last night.
No. There might have been 85 people in the stadium last night.
I could hear the air conditioning on my TV.
T-Bone was telling us a story while he was watching the game.
I thought something was wrong with my air conditioning. It's like, what is that sound going on?
You could hear the AC over the broadcast. It wasn't a great look. Not surprising, though. Who did have a good game was Nolan Gorman. Impressive night for him. Had the home run. And T-Bone, this has been a consistent theme for him now. Nolan Gorman, if you go back, this is all the way to June 3rd. This is not a overly small sample size anymore. It's like 200 at-bats for him. He's batting .250. He's getting on base 34% of the time. Really good number for Nolan Gorman. And he's slugging .500. That's an OPS just over 840. In that stretch of games, 11 home runs, 29 ribbies. That would be a pace over a 162 game season of 38 homers and 100 RBI. All right. So I got a tweet last night after saying, hey, Gorman, really nice outing for him. Pretty good stretch of games for Nolan Gorman. They said, man, I wonder what he would do if he could get a full season in. T-Bone, since being called up, this is not like a fun within points number. His entire major league career, if you just did a per 162 game average now, he is averaging per season 22 doubles, 30 homers, and 82 RBIs. He's roughly 5% above league average offensively in that stretch of time because of the slugging percentage. That's primarily what's carrying him. T-Bone, we've had a million different conversations at this point of which of the left-handed bats are going to be here long-term, what value do they have, how do they profile best with this club, who has the most value, all of these different things that will go into who you keep around beyond the 2025 season. In your mind, is Nolan Gorman making a case to be here for 2026?
He is one that is very difficult for me because I look at him and I go, man, you have the one thing that the rest of this team does not, which is that home run power that you were just talking about with his 162 pace in his career. And like, you can just see it, man. When he is right, he has the chance to be a guy that can carry a team. He has the chance to get that hot. That's the kind of bat that he has the potential in there for. The problem is I've seen him go through his lows, and when he goes through his lows, it's ugly. But what makes it tough for me is I've also got to find the spot for J.J. Weatherholt in the future. I don't know if Gorman's the guy that I want to bet on and say, okay, yeah, I'll keep this guy here, when I don't think his value's that great. And what I mean by that is he reminds me of Dalton Varsho of the Toronto Blue Jays. Doesn't hit for a lot of average, doesn't get on base, but man, he can slug from that left side. But Varsho plays Gold Glove defense in center field. Gorman doesn't play Gold Glove defense at second base. In fact, he's below average, I would say, at second base, and really well below average at third base. So I don't know how I should value that guy. That's my tough part. I don't know what to make of him. I would lean towards you keep him just because of the bat. If you were a contending team, if you were, the Cardinals back in 2022 and you had this version of Nolan Gorman, he would be the perfect six-hole hitter on that team that can provide power from the left side, that can do damage when they would have had Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado on base. It's why I lean towards you keep him, but by the time you're competitive again, then he's like getting closer to free agency, and I think you may have missed your window. So my long-term age, I'm sitting on the fence. I'm leaning towards falling onto the side of, I think I would keep him here as a part of the future.
I'm not giving him up just to give him up. I'll say that much. I mean, worst case scenario, this is a really nice bat to have coming off of your bench next year. Left-handed power, you can play him at second or at third. I think he could probably play first in a pinch if you really needed him to. I still think they should potentially try him in the outfield, but we're trying that with everybody else, so I don't know that you could make it work. I think he has value for this team. And this is always the thing that's difficult to me, T-Bone, is we have to talk about these players specific to the 2026 Cardinals. How do you fit into this group of players? I think Brendan Donovan is a better player than Nolan Gorman. I think Lars Nootbaar, honestly, is a better player than Nolan Gorman. I think Alec Burleson is a better player than Nolan Gorman. But what this team lacks is that slug, especially from the left side. And there's nobody in your system. We'll see on J.J. Weatherholt. He's showing some more power lately. Maybe that's real, and maybe he can be this guy. But it's not been the profile for the majority of his career up until now. Gorman is the one guy in your system. Hell, Ollie Marmol said this. When we asked him when he was on the show with us, is it fair to say Nolan Gorman has the best power potential within your system right now? He said, yeah, especially from the left side and especially to all fields. That's how I view it as well. So I think I would want him back next year, unless somebody knocks my socks off and says, here's an offer you can't refuse. All right, cool. Yeah, I'll trade him. He's not I'm unwilling to include him in conversations type of a player. That's really just Yvonne Herrera and maybe Mason Wynn. Beyond that, I'll pretty much listen on anybody. But Gorman would be somebody that, given his profile, given how he fits into this team, I'd probably keep him around for next season. And that does mean that I'm listening on some of these other guys. I'm listening on Lars Nootbaar. I'd probably trade him. I'm listening on Brendan Donovan. And I'll see what the value is in a return of that kind of a deal. That's part of this conversation as well. I think you're getting more back for Donnie or for Nootbaar than you would be in any trade for Nolan Gorman.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely possible because of what I just said with Gorman. It's easy to kind of point out his flaws and tough to figure out where his value pinpoints on. Everybody's looking for power bats, but teams typically like a guy that can play defense as well. But with like Nootbaar, for example, for Brendan Donovan, guys like that, what they're going to be about 10% above league average. They're going to get on base. They've got a little bit of pop, and they both play solid defense to where, I think teams will value that a little bit more. And the other thing for me, if you did trade Nolan Gorman, so say you decide, not part of the 2026 Cardinals and whatever the plans may be beyond that, there's just too much redundancy in the lineup then. If you decide to keep Brendan Donovan, he's an on-base guy, hits for a high average, but he's more of an on-base guy, more of that leadoff type. Okay, well, let's say you did decide to keep Lars Nootbaar. Okay, well, then we're back in that same conversation of redundance of a high on-base guy. J.J. Weatherholt, sure, maybe he does develop into that slug. Right now, my expectation wouldn't be to plan on that. Anything that he gives us in terms of slugging will be a bonus.
Don't hate me, Cardinals fans. I think what my current expectation is for J.J. is he's a better version of Lars Nootbaar.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is he feels more like an on-base guy than a slug guy. So once again, we're back into that redundancy conversation. And is there anybody else internally? I think we had this conversation early last week that I could look at and go, okay, maybe this guy develops more power, significant power. I don't mean going from 10 to 15 home runs. I mean going to about 25 to 30. I don't see that in Mason Wynn's future. I think he's more in that 10 to 15 or 15 to 20 guy. Alec Burleson, I don't really see that in his future. Yvonne Herrera, I'm skeptical of seeing that because we've seen a power outage from him in the second half. So where's that power coming from? Who's the guy that's going to replace what Gorman would be doing, which is if he can stay healthy, he can figure out the back, and he can kind of click it all together for a stretch like we're seeing right now. It doesn't have to be a full season, but longer stretches rather than in 2 years ago where it was 1 month hot, 1 month cold, 1 month hot, 1 month cold. You don't have that guy. You don't have that guy here, so that's why I agree. I think I almost lean towards he is the guy that stays, and it's more just by his profile and the value that I think you're going to be able to get on guys like Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan, and etc.
The Cardinals this year in Major League Baseball ranked 25th in home runs. They have hit 120 home runs so far this season. Of those 120, 12 have come from Nolan Gorman. I'm just eliminating those because Gorman has 12, Arenado has 10. That's 22 home runs at this point in the season. And if you stretch that out over the full season, you're talking about like 30-ish for those guys. Where is that coming from? Who am I replacing those home runs with? Because even if you think Weatherholt is going to be a really good player almost immediately, is he going to have 30 home runs next year? I think that's asking a lot out of him. I think that's asking a lot out of any rookie, much less a guy that doesn't necessarily profile to be that. So now we're talking about you dropping down further on this home run total from 120 to what? 110, 105? Guys, that would put you 29th or 30 or 28th or 29th in Major League Baseball. That's not where you want to be. It's really hard to win that way. The only team in the bottom 10 this year in home runs that is currently in the playoff mix is the San Diego Padres, and I don't understand anything about what's happening with them. They're a Ponzi scheme. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, that you look at their roster and you think to yourself, man, that's a really good lineup. And then you look at the numbers. They're terrible.
Yeah.
They can't hit. It doesn't make sense. So, yeah, I think that the Cardinals, it is time to seriously start considering if Nolan Gorman is a guy that ends up actually jumping some of the other left-handed bats as a real part of your future. Not because I love the idea, but because of how they fit into the mix, how they fit into this lineup, and what you're missing if you decide not to bring him back next season. With Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters. We've got questions and answers at 11:45. Yes, I've seen your questions on the text line. We will talk a little bit about the move that the Blues made today with Milan Lucic. We'll talk about that with Jeremy Rutherford coming up in the 12 o'clock hour. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is available for you, as always, at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Coming up next, talked about the good with Nolan Gorman from last night. Let's talk about the mixed bag with Matthew Liberatore. Started out hot, and then guess what? The fastball velo started to drop again. What do we make of this? What does it mean long term? We'll talk about Libby next here on 101 ESPN.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
That one down the left field line and fair. That'll bounce up against the fence. Ramirez is on his way to second. The Marlins are jumping on Liberatore early in the count tonight, and Ramirez 2 more hits. Hits it to left softly. Burleson coming on. He's not going to get there. Here comes Ramirez around third. Throw comes into second. It's off target. Marcy has a 2 RBI game. A blue double ties it up. Matt Svanson's gotten up in the Cardinals bullpen. Is Libby in trouble here? Back-to-back doubles. And it appears that's going to be the end of the line for him. Oliver Marmol is on his way out. Cardinals will try to get Libby through 6, but back-to-back extra base hits have our game tied at 3.
That's what it sounded like on FanDuel Sports Midwest yesterday. Chip Carey on the call. Matthew Liberatore was really good for 5 innings, and then suddenly the fastball velo started to dip once again. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. T-Bone in the 4th inning, fastball velo 94 miles an hour to 95 miles an hour. He was consistent with that throughout the first 4 innings. And then suddenly, you get into the 5th, and it happened again. His fastball velo dips to 90 to 91 miles per hour, and it's barely playing off of his cutter. His fastball velo and his cutter velo was suddenly like the same. They were merging into one pitch. It was really strange. And then in the 6th inning, no surprise, cutter, curveball, boom, game over, because they could eliminate his fastball. They don't have to worry about that anymore. There is no threat of it. So with Matthew Liberatore for 4 innings right now, he looks like a legit number 2 or 3 starter. You get into the 5th, and suddenly he's a 5. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but it's been happening with consistency over the last, really, 6 weeks or so?
Yeah.
So, T-Bone, the reason I bring this up is because I think we kind of wrote it off as, hey, this is a workload thing. It's clearly an issue that he's going to have to deal with the rest of the year, and maybe that is indeed the case. He still has a 4.1 ERA. Overall, this has been a success story for the Cardinals. He is a really solid starter. I don't know if you've looked up his underlying numbers at all, T-Bone.
I looked at his Baseball Savant page today.
It's not overly impressive.
No.
It looks very similar to the last time that he started. Like, it's almost a mirror image. Expected batting average stuff, whiff rates, strikeout rates, all of this is basically exactly where it was in 22 and 23. And it's continuing to be there once again in 2025, other than a really good start to the season. So the reason that I bring all of this up is because it makes me wonder, is this actually a workload issue? Or is Matthew Liberatore somebody that, at least at this point in his career, maybe he can correct this in the offseason, but his issue when he was 22 and 23 years old starting was he can't maintain his velo late into the games. And his issue as a 25-year-old starter, now that he is back into the mix as a starting pitcher, is he can't maintain that velo late into the games. Maybe this is just who he's going to be. And that doesn't mean that he's a failure. That still can be a valuable piece of a rotation. But much like the conversation that we had on our Open today about Gorman and how he fits with the mix that you have here, it does bring into question the mix that you have with your rotation. Because if Libby's going to be this guy, and that's more of a 4 or a 5 starter, and Palante is a 5 starter, and McGreevy is probably, at least at this point in his career, a 4 or a 5 starter, that's a lot of back into the rotation starters that you're starting to construct this rotation around. And eventually, hey, maybe even this offseason, you can consider trading from that surplus as well, and then go out there and try to add something that makes more sense to you, maybe with higher upside in your minor league system. What do you make of this with Matthew Liberatore, T-Bone?
Yeah, I get the skepticism of, hey, haven't we seen this before from Liberatore, where you get the drop in velo? The one thing that makes me hope, I guess would be the word that I have here, is that he was able to sustain this early on in the season. You know, early on through his starts, basically up until about July. Correct. He was able to maintain his velo for his first portion of starts this season, which makes me think, okay, maybe this is just the fatigue building back up as a starter, and now he's kind of hitting that wall. That's my hope for this. I still want to dream on what the first half of the season was for Liberatore, while also acknowledging the problems that we're seeing here in the second half. But if this is more of the thing long-term for Libby, which is, hey, whether that is it starts in July or it starts in May or whatever it may occur to where he has velo that dips like it does consistently here over his last, 7 starts, he's going to be about what he's been, a 5.46 ERA starter and a guy that you hope is 5 and dive. And to get through 5, I mean, you look at his recent outings, 5, 3, 4 1/3, 4 1/3, 4, 4, 5. To get through 5, if your stuff starts to diminish and you start to lose velo on your stuff, what do you have to do? You have to learn to pitch, right? You have to learn to be able to move and adjust and hit the corners and avoid walking guys. But that is a hard life to live.
Yeah, that's not realistic. For him, part of the value is I can throw 94, 95.
And he will become a number 5 starter if that is the case. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You need good 5 starters. But to your point on Palante, Liberatore, McGreevy, you've got a whole bunch of those already. You've already got a bunch of 4 and 5s. Now, where the Cardinals are going, that's okay. If you're rebuilding, it's okay to have a McGreevy, a Palante, and Liberatore all in the rotation at the same time. When you start to get towards what the Cardinals envision getting back into a contending window, you can't have a rotation like this. And you can then, to your point, trade from that surplus. But for me right now, my hope is, okay, this is an issue for the now. He will figure this out in the offseason, and he will come back in 2026 and look more like the guy we saw in the first half that maintains his velo, and he's able to do it throughout the entire season.
Yeah, I'm still optimistic that Matthew Liberatore can be a good starter for the Cardinals. I am still optimistic that this is a workload problem for him. I do have questions. I do think that right now it is fair to wonder, is this purely workload, or is it something that Libby is going to be dealing with moving forward? Is this just a part of who he is as a starter at the big league level? Because he has to go close to max effort for 4 innings. That's not an easy life to live. There are very few starters that can do that over the course of 6+, and that's what they're going to be asking of him eventually, whenever he does become this fully formed version of himself. So I think it's at least an open-ended question right now. It's not something that you say, okay, well, we've got to get rid of him or anything like that. Next year, he should be expected to be a part of this rotation. The ceiling for Libby depends upon this question. Mm-hmm. It depends upon whether or not he is able to break through this block that he has right now in the 5th, 6th, and beyond, and become a guy that can maintain that velo into the 6th inning. Because if he can't, you are a back-end starter. If you can, then you start exploring more of, okay, this could be a mid to upper portion of the rotation starter, as long as that remains the case in the future. All right, the other thing that I wanted to get to here, T-Bone, talking a little bit about the rotation and how it's going to look in 2026. It's a big part of what the rest of the season's going to be. Ken Rosenthal had an interesting report at the game on Saturday. Here's what he had to say about Sonny Gray.
Well, Adam, to this point, Sonny Gray has been unwilling to waive his no-trade clause, but his stance this offseason might change. Gray turns 36 in November, and he still feels he can be productive. He wants one more crack at winning, one more shot at the postseason. And these last 3 starts, including this one, they've all been high profile. At Dodger Stadium, Cubs on Sunday Night Baseball, here on Fox tonight. And he said, as Adam Wainwright mentioned earlier, these kinds of games get his juices flowing. He said, I do want those moments more. They're fun for me.
I remember at the beginning of the season, we were at winter warm-up, T-Bone, and we asked Sonny Gray about whether or not he would, consider waiving his no-trade clause. And he said, it's not something I'm willing to do right now. I want to go into this season. I want to play with these guys. I think we have a chance to be better than people think, blah, blah, blah. He's just basically going on and on about why he decided to stay here this year. But he always left open the idea that that could change. It could have changed at midseason. It could change in the offseason. It could change next year at the trade deadline. He's open to the idea that at some point he could go elsewhere. And it seems like, based on that conversation that he had with Ken Rosenthal and the report that Ken Rosenthal gave, he is starting to open the door on the possibility that this offseason, his home for 2026 will be elsewhere. What did you make of it?
Yeah, when I heard that report on the broadcast on that game on Saturday, I thought Sonny Gray is going to waive his no-trade clause and will be the guy that the Cardinals will be able to ship out in the offseason to save on payroll. And I think they'll still try that with Arenado. I think it's an open-ended question if they're going to be able to accomplish that going into the offseason. but I think Sonny Gray is going to be on a new team come 2026. I think he is going to be traded, and I don't remember if it was winter warm-up or when exactly it was. I remember his quote of, hey, when you're an organization, you either got to push in one direction, you can't get stuck in the middle. You either got to go out there and go and improve the team and try and push for October, or you go the other direction. And the Cardinals are going the other direction, which is going to lead towards Sonny Gray if he wants to pitch in big games saying, I don't want to be a part of a rebuild. I will do this in the offseason. I will talk with my family. I'll make that decision, and I will go elsewhere. I expect Sonny Gray to not be a Cardinal come opening day 2026.
What does that mean for them?
For the Cardinals? Oh, the rotation's going to be awful to watch, but it hasn't been great to watch this year. Now, they're going to have a limited return.
Now imagine what it's going to be without Sonny Gray.
Oh, it's going to look like a rebuild rotation for sure. I don't know what they're going to do for like 5 starters. Like planning right now, I think it's a lock. You get Palante, McGreevy, Libby in the rotation. Probably have to go out there and sign one veteran at minimum to like a $5 million deal, maybe 2, and then depending on if they want to stretch out Leahy, I think Leahy as well. Sure, you can add that as well. You acquire somebody that's like a back-end starter, because I don't think they're going to do buying, quote-unquote, from trading.
Yeah, but I think you could do the Brady Singer deal that we talked about yesterday, where the Reds traded Jonathan India, and in return, they got Brady Singer. You could make a deal like that with one of your left-handed bats, potentially. That helps a little bit, and then you just go out there and sign one of those bats, or one of those pitchers that you were talking about. Cardinals this year are 18-7 with Sonny Gray on the mound. 18-7. That would mean overall this season, when Sonny Gray is not a starter for the St. Louis Cardinals, they are 44-57.
Yeah, that feels about right.
In other words, one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. You're at a 45% winning percentage when anybody other than Sonny Gray is on the mound. That would put you this season, let's see here, roughly in line with what the Atlanta Braves have been. One of the 6 worst teams in Major League Baseball. Wins, losses, not the end-all, be-all for starting pitchers. I certainly wouldn't condone that as your metric of choice. However, I do think it is symbolic and it is representative of what he has meant to this team. He gives you a chance to win most times that he is out there. Obviously, the Yankees game notwithstanding, but
most was aggressive, but yeah.
I would say most of the time he gives you a pretty good chance to win.
I find it shocking. What'd you say the record is? 18-7?
18-7.
I find it shocking they're 18-7 with him on the mound this year.
He has gone at least 6 innings with 3 or fewer runs allowed. 1, 2, let's see here, 11 times this year. And in some of the 5-inning starts, here's the results. 5 innings, 2 earned runs. 5 innings, 1 earned run twice. 5 innings, 2 earned runs against. 5 innings, 3 earned runs. That's going to give you a chance.
Boy, this is a reminder, when he's bad, he's awful.
Yep. And then there are some of these other games. 3 1/3, 8 earned runs. 3 2/3, 7 earned runs. 4 1/3, 6 earned runs. 5 innings, 6 earned runs. 5 innings, 11 hits, 6 earned runs. When he's bad, he's really, really bad. But I just listed off, I think it was 5 starts. That's basically the extent of his bad starts this year. Otherwise, he's been pretty damn good for you. I mean, you look at some of the underlying numbers, they remain extremely impressive for him. And he's the only starter on this team that you can say that about. Every other starter, you look at the underlying numbers, you're like, whew. Well, thankfully, he's getting away with it for right now. We'll see how long he's able to do that. But without Sonny Gray in this rotation, they got some serious problems. Yeah. That's when you really talk rebuild. That's when you talk about a team that could win 72 games next year.
And that's not even counting when we're talking about like plucking some of the position players off the roster, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a chance they trade 2 or 3 of those guys.
Do you think they should trade Sonny Gray next year? Would you, like, if you took money out of it and you were just talking about what is best for the St. Louis Cardinals for the near and long-term future, would you trade Sonny Gray? I wouldn't. If we're not talking money, I don't see any real value, any real benefit to it because of that no trade clause, because you're probably not going to get a huge return coming off of this specific season, and because he's going to have maybe 2 or 3 teams that he's willing to go to, and maybe 2 of those teams are interested in him at $35 million. You're probably going to have to eat some of that too. I'm good. I'll just go ahead and keep Sonny Gray, and if I decide to move him at the deadline, great. But for right now, I think I would rather have him as part of the team next year.
Because now you don't even have those bullets internally either, for that matter. You no longer have a Roby waiting in the wings, somebody like that. You don't know about Quinn Matthews. There's so much uncertainty down on the farm, you can't even consider it. You already have to go out, Tanner, as you said, and basically pluck a 1-year veteran guy on a minimum sort of deal.
And if I'm one of these other teams that's looking at potentially adding a starter, I would rather go to the market than $35 million paying that for Sonny Gray. That's not. This year, you could have made a case for it because it's 2 years, 60. Now you go to the market, I can go get a better bang for my buck. I'll go get somebody else out there.
Yeah, I would trade him. And it's not about, like, you don't have that internally. They're in a rebuild. I mean, they are coming to the reality of the only way to right this ship is to tear it down. Now, maybe not all the way down to the studs where you're like the Rockies, where you're going to lose 120-some games. It is time to officially enter the rebuild stage. And when you rebuild, you move on from a guy like Sonny Gray. Sure, there's not much value in him, but you're in a rebuild. You're going through 3 years of rough pain right now. I think it is the time to move Sonny Gray. I think it's probably even time to, if Contreras would be willing to waive his no-trade clause, to trade Wilson Contreras. I think that's where they are as an organization. They are finally at that spot of it is time to tear it to the studs.
He's T-Bone. That's Bradford on BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers. But next, NFL quick hitters, including the team that is most likely to get worse in the 2025 season. Could it be my Chiefs? We'll give you the case for it next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
Sign up to play fantasy football with Adam Wainwright, Lars Nootbaar, and others during Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season. Help support some awesome charitable causes handpicked by the participating players. And show off your fantasy skills with the chance to win a variety of prizes. Space is limited.
You can find all the details on how to sign up for Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season now at 101ESPN.com.
Text us anytime at 314-399-9646 on the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation text line on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Cards, MASH versus Marlins. Good morning. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night, Wilson Contreras made his triumphant return to the Cardinals lineup, going 2 for 4 with an RBI. Several others also stepping up as St. Louis took its series opener over Miami 8-3. Alec Burleson added 3 hits, helping STL end that 5-game losing streak. This afternoon at 5:40, Michael McGreevy opposes Edward Cabrera. NFL preseason Week 2 action has concluded. Cincinnati defeating Washington 31-17. Joe Burrow orchestrated 2 touchdown drives while Jaden Daniels played 4 snaps. Your Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet plus Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters. I love reading these pieces from Bill Barnwell. I think he's one of the best in the business at really depicting who are the teams that are most likely to regress and who are the teams that are most likely to get better heading into the upcoming NFL season. Would you like to start, T-Bone, with the teams that are expected to get better or get worse? Which one do you want to go with?
You know what? I'm feeling positive. It's a bright, sunny day. A little hot, but let's go with the teams that are going to get better this year.
All right. He says these are the following teams that he believes will get better from where they were in 2024. They will improve on their record from 2024. The Chicago Bears.
I like that one.
The San Francisco 49ers. The Jacksonville Jaguars. The Las Vegas Raiders.
I like that one.
And the New York Giants.
I don't like that one.
T-Bone, of those 5 teams, which one would you pinpoint as A, most likely to improve, and B, most likely to win 10 games?
I think my answer, it fits both categories for me. Most likely to improve and to get to 10 wins would be the Raiders. Because you have a great defense already that we've seen that they've had really for the last 2 or 3 years. They always run the Chiefs somehow to like the brink of a loss, and it's just because of their defense. And now you add in quarterback Geno Smith, who's not great, but he's a perfect game manager for a team that desperately needed a quarterback in the Raiders. You've got Brock Bowers, who's a legit wide receiver tight end for them. And now you add an Ashton Genty to that offense. And on top of it, I add in the 30-year-old stuck in a 80-year-old's body in Pete Carroll, who's a great head coach. Yeah, I think the Raiders. I think I could see them being the team that most improved and can get to 10 wins. Those other teams that you mentioned, like Giants, probably going to fire their coach 4 games into the year. 49ers, I'm kind of skeptical on because I didn't really like their offseason, even though they did get younger. Bears I like, but I'm still a little skeptical on Caleb Williams. So I would say the Raiders for me. And the Jaguars stink with Trevor Lawrence.
For me, frankly, the biggest upside lies in Chicago, and that's not just based on what we saw Sunday night versus Buffalo, but rather when you're talking about orchestrating and coordinating an offense specifically. You know what you have in a Ben Johnson. He is a known commodity, and how many instrumental, good to great young pieces actually reside there. The only reason why I'm not taking that team on both fronts, guys, is because of the division, obviously, in which it has to labor at times. The NFC North, it's going to be brutal. I want nothing to do with the Jaguars, even though I don't like the AFC South whatsoever, because I don't know what I'm going to get from a Liam Cohen team. He has been a coaching nomad. If you look at the stops over the past 5 years, to say nothing of what you think you're going to get from Trevor Lawrence. As far as viability goes of reaching double digits this coming season, I still would roll the dice when it comes to the 49ers, because with all due respect to the Rams in that division, I understand, Tanner, you have Stafford coming back. He's practicing at long last. I don't love Seattle. I haven't loved Arizona for the past couple of seasons, and I will hedge my bets when it comes to Kyle Shanahan. I know Ayuk is not going to be a presence at the beginning of the season. McCaffrey will be, as far as we know, and when it comes to coaching acumen and execution, that team still has enough experience, I think, to weather the problems and sniff 10 wins again.
All right, so here's the deal. Can we talk about the AFC South for a moment?
Sure.
Do we have to?
See what the Colts decided to do today?
Yeah, they're starting Danny Dimes week 1.
Love you, Anthony Richardson. It's been real. Can't say it's been particularly fun. I'll enjoy it when you're the backup on the Pittsburgh Steelers by week 6. They're not good.
Yeah, agreed.
And they have a really bad quarterback. That was probably going to be the case either way, but at least with Richardson, there was some kind of an upside. We know what Daniel Jones is. It's quite bad. He's not a good starter in the NFL. People convince themselves because he won a playoff game against a terrible trash team that he's like this guy that you have to sign.
You don't have to take that away
I've
from
been
Danny
right
Dimes.
on 2 quarterbacks that I said you shouldn't sign this guy to a big long-term extension. I got pushback on both. I'm wrong about a lot of stuff. I was right about both of these. They should not have signed Daniel Jones. They should not have signed Tua Tagovailoa to that long-term deal either. Both of those have aged incredibly poorly, but neither here nor there. The Colts are bad. The Tennessee Titans, do you think they're going to be good this year?
I don't think so.
They had a frisky defense last year. Cam Ward is interesting to me, and he's looked really good thus far in the preseason. But they, to me, are more of like a candidate to win 6 games and be interesting.
Thinking. 6 or 7's like their ceiling to me.
Than to really go anywhere further than that. I am not at all convinced that the Texans have improved this offseason. I think, if anything, they've gotten worse. Their offensive line, they got rid of their best player from the unit. That was already horrendous. And I don't know that their weapons are going to be particularly good this year either. They seemingly replaced Stephon Diggs, who was hurt for most of last year, with a couple of rookies. I don't know how that's going to go for them. 2 Iowa State rookies. We'll see. That leaves the Jags, man. I am not super interested in them. I don't think they're going to be a great team. And if they were in any other division in the AFC, I would say they have no chance of winning. But in this division, with these crap teams, could they win 10 games? You bet your ass they could. Because they've got a good offensive mind. I saw what he was able to do last year with Baker Mayfield, who a lot of people had written off previously. A lot of people have now written off Trevor Lawrence, including myself. If he has a good coach in place, I think the Jaguars could win 10 games this year. So my team from this list, I'm not saying it with a whole lot of oomph, but I'll say the Jags win 10 games this year out of the list of teams that could potentially improve in 2025. I
agreed with you on the Danny Dimes contract being a mistake. I agreed on Tua being a mistake. Trevor Lawrence was a mistake. That guy is not a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. And when you're not that, good luck winning 10 games. Even in that crappy division, I don't think he is capable of getting the Jaguars to double digits.
All right, let's go through the other side of this. We just went to the upswing. Now let's go to the downswing. Teams that could get worse in 2025 from where they were last year, according to Bill Barnwell of ESPN.com. He has the following teams in this category: the Chiefs, the aforementioned Colts, the Commanders, the Lions, and the Vikings. Those are the 5 teams that he pinpointed. One of the main reasons for the Chiefs, just as an example, they were 10-0 last year in games decided by 7 or fewer points. Generally speaking, that is not sustainable. Teams that win a bunch of close games, that's a sign that maybe a little bit fortunate, including the game that they won where they like blocked a field goal at the very end with the Broncos, I think it was. That doesn't typically translate year to year. But the Chiefs could just be a better quality team. They've got a new left tackle. They've got their weapons, hopefully healthy this season. So that's just one of the explanations he gave as to why they could be worse than their 15-2 record, which is a high starting point to clear to begin with in 2025. T-Bone, of those 5 teams, Chiefs, Colts, Commanders, Lions, and Vikings, who would you pinpoint as the team that's most likely to regress this year?
2 really stick out to me. It's the Lions and Vikings. I will circle the Vikings as the team that is the most likely to regress, to where I think they can fall to 10-7, 9-8. And it just comes down to their quarterback. I have no idea what to expect from J.J. McCarthy. I remember a week ago, on this show, we were playing a clip of Diana Rossini on a show saying, the Vikings aren't like all that thrilled with what they're seeing from J.J. McCarthy. It's been fine, but it's not been great. And if there's going to be growing pains with J.J. McCarthy, they are the team that's going to regress back. They still got a great defense. I love Flores as their defensive coordinator. But, man, if you do not get adequate quarterback play here in the NFL, it is hard to finish above 500, as we've seen with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
For me, I'm taking all of those quarterback concerns into consideration for Minnesota, but by the same token, Tanner, you're talking about the heralded quarterback whisperer, right, in Kevin O'Connell, and I feel a heck of a lot more confident in his ability to basically shepherd the growth of a young quarterback than I do, let's just say it, the situation for me in Indianapolis. I think that could go so south in a hurry, and it's not just because you're starting, at least to begin the season, Danny Dimes at that position. I don't think that you can conceivably get a better candidate campaign on the ground from Jonathan Taylor. Last season, you maxed out, I think, production in that area. Are you going to get another 14 games from him? Is he going to be able to pile up more than 1,400 yards on the ground? I don't know where you markedly improved in any area on that team. Great, you drafted a Tyler Warren, but to whom are you actually going to turn to get him the football? And I still don't love that defense. I think the Colts, frankly, more than any other squad really of that 5-pack, has a considerable number of holes for me.
So when I look at the schedule, this is something that I am considering. The Detroit Lions lost both of their coordinators. They have, according to FPI, ESPN's NFL metric, which take it or leave it, but it's one of these that you can look at for the quality of the opponents. They have the second most difficult schedule in the NFL this season. They are playing against the NFC East, the AFC North. They've got Tampa, they've got Philadelphia, and they've got the LA Rams on their schedule. It's not an easy stretch for them. Rams are on the road. Eagles are on the road. They go to Cincinnati. They go to Baltimore. Like, think about this for the beginning portion of their schedule, T-Bone. First 6 weeks. At Green Bay, they could easily lose that game. Home against Chicago, probably a win, but Chicago's going to be frisky. At Baltimore, they could lose that game. Home against Cleveland, all right, probably going to win that one. At Cincy, and that's typically the time of the year that Cincy starts to figure things out by week 5.
50-50, I'd say, yeah.
At Kansas City,
that's a loss.
Could lose that game. Might be the first game that we see Rashee Rice. And then home against Tampa Bay. Now you're to your bye week. They could be 3-4, 2-5, and I don't think it should shock anybody. So I think that the Lions, I still believe they're going to win, 10 games this season. But coming off of a season where they were one of the best in the NFL, I could see some serious regression coming for the Detroit Lions. Coming up next, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on 101 ESPN.
It's an MLB weekend on ESPN. Yankees and Red Sox. Game 1, Saturday. First pitch, 12:05. Then Sunday, it's Game 2. First pitch, 6:10. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN. giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. We'll get to Jeremy Rutherford, our Blues insider, coming up here in a little less than 10 minutes from the 618. Guys, where do you see Milan Lucic filling in on the Blues if he ends up making this team? T-Bone, I know you were thrilled when you saw this news earlier today, thinking to yourself, man, the Blues just added a new fourth liner. What do you think Milan Lucic could or will bring to the table?
Yeah, I think if he does make the team out of camp, it will be in a fourth line / 13th forward role. Guy that sits up in the press box, brings veteran experience, has played, I believe, under Jim Montgomery. That would be his role. There's not much ceiling to the signing. It is more of, let's bring in some more depth, bring in a guy that can potentially compete with Joseph and Texier and maybe one of the fourth line wingers for that spot. That's what I expect his kind of role to be if he wins the job out of camp.
6'4", 240 pounds. If we've seen anything, it is that Jim Montgomery likes size. Mm-hmm. He has really put an emphasis on size and speed in the lineup. And so it makes me wonder, is there a potential spot for him on that fourth line? Could they look at this and say, hey, we liked the identity that they had developed with the WTF line, but imagine if we could get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit meaner on that fourth line. What would it look like if it was Toropchenko, Sonny, and Lucic heading into the season? And maybe Nathan Walker is that 13th forward for us heading into opening night. It seems as though every coach that comes in here wants to replace Nathan Walker. I love the guy. I think he is offensively more skilled than what they've had on that fourth line. I think despite his size, he brings so much tenacity to the ice in terms of just battling for every loose puck that I would place a lot of value on that. But if you wanted to add a little bit more size, Lucic is somebody that in his career has added a little bit of scoring punch as well. He's pretty consistently like a 10-goal scorer, 20-ish points on any given season over the last 5 to 6 years. I think it's a worthwhile PTO. There's really no downside to it. See if he's got anything left in the tank. He's like 36, 37 years old. Find out where he's at. Mm-hmm. So I don't think there's a ton of upside. I agree with T-Bone there, but if you wanted to add a little bit of size, not a bad one. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, when do you think is the soonest season that the Cardinals will have a legitimate superstar on their roster? 27 would be at the earliest. I don't know any scenario where they get one for 26, so I'll say 27.
Yeah, I was leaning 28. I could see 27 where you kind of try and accelerate the rebuild so you get the superstar first and then you develop the complementary pieces around him. I'll go 28. I think it'll be 2 years before they say, okay, it's time to go out there and find that guy for our lineup.
Bradford, what do you think is the earliest that we could see it?
27 most optimistically, but honestly, even at that point in time, quite frankly, when you think about the obvious candidates, the guys who are going to be on the roster, I am not ready to commit from an offensive standpoint and say somebody is going to be identified. Now, we know that 2026 is absolutely null and void. So yeah, I think the best for which you can hope is 27. But even that, to me, frankly, is a stretch, guys.
From the 636, guys, they could call it the STL line if it ends up being Lucic on that line with Sonny and Toropchenko. That's a good point. Maybe that's why they signed him.
Well, that is pretty good.
Had the WTF, now it's the STL line. From the 314, BK, did you see that the Cardinals are officially eligible for a high draft pick again? Indeed. I was heartened to see that Derek Gould was able to get in touch with Major League Baseball. I tried to do this through the Cardinals and I got multiple different answers, but basically Derek Gould through Major League Baseball was able to report that the Cardinals are indeed eligible to win the Major League Baseball draft lottery next year. Huge news. And I don't know why it was so difficult to get this information. I think it goes into the nitty-gritty of what the rules are here. But for example, Tankathon, the place that I typically go to find out where the odds are, all of these different things, they have the Cardinals as ineligible. That is, according to Derek Gould's reporting, incorrect. The Cardinals are indeed eligible, and right now they are only a few games ahead of the San Francisco Giants for the 9th best odds in Major League Baseball. They are right now actually just one game, half game ahead of them. So
It's an important series against Miami.
They're rising up the ranks relatively quickly.
Last night's win was not good for us.
Yeah, the Cardinals need to lose the next couple of games against Miami. That would be helpful if you're just looking at draft odds.
And you know what? I believe they can.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is available for you. YouTube.com/101 ESPN STL. Coming up next, Jeremy Rutherford joins us here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN has your chance to win a pair of free tickets to this year's Blues and Brews on Friday evening, September 19th at the Anheuser-Busch Brewery. Get fired up for the Blues season at this outdoor street party featuring live music from Grammy-nominated trio, the band Perry. Plus appearances by Blues players and alumni, food trucks, onstage festivities hosted by 101 ESPN's Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale, and more. Tickets are on sale now for Blues and Brews, presented by Bud Light, 101 ESPN at 92.3 WIL. Find all the details and that chance to win free tickets now at 101ESPN.com and on the 101 mobile app.
Hey, baseball fans, step up to the plate like a pro with the world's largest sports book at your fingertips. Circa Sports Illinois. It's sports betting the way it should be. With high app limits, low holds, exceptional customer service, and more. Whether you're betting with the home team or scouting the next big matchup, take your swing with the Circa Sports app. Start betting like a pro from anywhere, anytime in Illinois. Download your new bookie today at circasports.com.
Jim Butler, Chevy Power.
You're joking, right?
Jim Butler is the Chevy powerhouse.
Much better. Together, let's drive at JimButlerChevrolet.com.
Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex out this week. He'll be back in with us on Monday. And right now, we are happy to be joined via the Callier and Thompson hotline by Jeremy Rutherford. He's the Blues insider for The Athletic, and you can find him on Twitter at JP Rutherford. JR, appreciate the time as always, man. We got some Blues news this morning. They signed Milan Lucic to a PTO. What did you make of this decision? And do you think he's got a real shot to make this roster?
Yeah, how about that? Yeah, a bit of a surprise today from the Blues. The Blues have done that in August in recent years, especially the offer sheets last August. So, Doug Armstrong and Alexander Steen always working. And so today, Milan Lucic, they announced, is going to come to camp, as you mentioned, on a PTO. I think a bit of a surprise. I think probably everybody thought that he was done in his career and after 17 years with several teams, in his heyday in Boston. I feel like everybody remembers him as a menace, 6'4", 230 pounds, 136 penalty minutes a few years, earlier in his career. And I think that you look at him and you think, okay, he's going to try to come back at age 37. Why not? It's worth a shot. If you're the Blues, here's a guy who's been out since 2023. But, BK, it's just a PTO. That's what I try to remind people. A couple years ago, 21-22, you had James Neal come in, look good in PTO. They signed him, just scored 2 goals, had 4 points in 19 games. So, these don't always work out. I know that people kind of throw a fit when teams do bring a PTO guy in when he's kind of later stage of his career. But that's what these things are. And you see if there's something there, and if there's not, then you move on.
And JR, camp, he's going to be competing for a roster spot, maybe trying to take that 13th forward role, or maybe, if possible, win a job on that 4th line. What are going to be the biggest competitions going into camp this year for the Blues?
Yeah, I think it depends on how they line up, Tanner. I think if you look at what Jim Montgomery told us at The Athletic a couple weeks ago, Suter's going to be in the middle, whether that's on the second line. I think you got to start with Braden Shen and Kyrou and Holloway together. But if Suter's centering that 3rd line, is Bukestad a winger on the 3rd line, or does he center the 4th line? Where is Oscar Sundqvist in that equation? Is he on the wing? He's obviously been a big contributor to the Blues for several years, but a step slower after all the surgeries and getting older. So where does he fit in? So I think you guys kind of nailed it last segment where you talk about, what's the future with Matthew Joseph. He just has the 1 year left on his contract, as well as Alexander Texier. So you have a couple guys who, do they have spots? Do they fit on that 3rd line? Probably not when you got a Suter and a Jake Neighbors. Do they fit on the 4th line? Well, you're looking at a Toropchenko for sure. I think you have to put Nathan Walker in the lineup and let him play. We've all touched on it where you take him out and you think, why doesn't Nathan Walker stay in there? And I think Jim Montgomery's a fan. So, could it be a situation where if Lucic comes in and looks good, that Walker could be an odd guy out? I suppose, but I don't see why after what you've seen him give this team for the past several years. So I think if you keep 14 forwards and Texier and Joseph are still here, and let's say Lucic looks okay in camp, well enough to sign, I think that's what that training camp battle would come down to is, the Joseph, Texier, Lucic, that type of thing.
We're talking to Jeremy Rutherford here on 101 ESPN. You can find his work over at The Athletic, and that's where he's done a couple of mailbags over the last few days. As we start kicking it into high gear, the Blues are, about a month away from really getting going with training camp and everything. JR, I feel like one of the biggest storylines once again, because like you mentioned, there's not a ton of roster battles. We kind of know how this roster for the most part is going to shake out. Is where does Dalibor Dvorsky fit into all of this? And could he make himself an option for the Blues in their lineup? How do you view that, JR? Is there any scenario where he could crack his way into this lineup by opening night?
I would be surprising to me. He could have a great camp and show him he's ready to go. Look, he was great in the American Hockey League last year. He was an all-star, and they named him one of the top prospects in the American Hockey League. But I think to come in and think that he could center one of these lines when this team is trying to be competitive and, not just the wild card, but maybe fight for a spot in the top 2 or 3 in the division, I think it's tough to think that Dvorsky can come in and do that. Now, the other option Doug Armstrong has mentioned is playing on the wing, just like Robert Thomas did when he came up that rookie season. And you could do that. So, let's say he was just the best player in training camp. And so the Blues decide, hey, look, he's played well enough. He's going to start on the right wing on that third line to open camp, and then you push Bukestad down to fourth line center, and now you have Sundqvist or whomever on the fourth line wing. There's a possibility of something like that if his play is strong. Probably the stronger possibility is starting out in the American Hockey League, getting in that groove again, showing that he's dominant at that level, and then giving him a crack when there's injury or somebody not performing well in St. Louis.
JR, one of the other young pieces for the St. Louis Blues will be Logan Mailloux. Big trade from Army in the offseason, moving on from a 20-goal scorer in Zach Bolduc. What are reasonable expectations for year one of Mailloux here in St. Louis?
Yeah, what a hockey trade that was. And, still here a couple months later, you think about what a big one-for-one move. Talking about Zach Bolduc, 19 goals last year, and I think he's going to have a bright future, but I also think that Mailloux's going to have a bright future here. The thing with the trade is I think it's going to take Mailloux a lot longer for 2 reasons. He hasn't played as much NHL action as Bolduc, and then also he's a defenseman. And so, you talk to hockey people over the years, and they say you need to see a guy 300 games to know what you got. 300 NHL games. When you think about Mailloux here, 8 NHL games, and he spent the bulk of last year in the American Hockey League. So I feel that he's ready to make this step, just talking to people and knowing what he did last year. But he's going to have to come in here and go through the ups and downs. He's going to have to go through hearing from the fan base, we gave up Zach Bolduc for a guy who's struggling 2 months, 3 months into the season. He's going to have to fight through that and just continue to grow his game. But I think he's got all the tools, and I see why the Blues like the trade and like the potential of Mailloux to be a guy on the right side who could be, a top 4 guy in the future. Still a young guy, but we have to keep in mind just 8 NHL games. He's going to take some time, but I really do think the Blues like this guy, and I think that both teams are going to like this trade. If you look down 3-4 years down the road, I think both teams will like this trade.
JR, final question for you. Jeremy Rutherford, our guest here on 101 ESPN. He joins us each Tuesday throughout the NHL season. Is there any expectation of contract extensions with anybody on the team getting done prior to opening night? Is that something at this point that you're still keeping an eye on, or do you think we're going to wait a little while for that?
Yeah, definitely keeping an eye on it, but I was, I don't want to say taken aback, but I think it was kind of eye-opening when Doug Armstrong was asked about that at the end of the season, in the early offseason, and he said, look, I'm not in a hurry with any of these guys, talking about Holloway and Broberg. Could something get done? For sure, but at that point in time, it didn't sound like Doug was trying to get these things done before the start of the season. It's a gamble. If they don't have great seasons and come back down to earth a little bit, then you can say, okay, well, maybe not 8-9 AAV for these guys, 8-9 million. But if they continue to produce the way they did last year, especially Holloway coming back from the surgery, and let's say he puts up 30, 35 goals, these guys with the cap going up, could be in line for $9-10 million a year potentially. So I think there is a bit of a gamble, but I think the Blues definitely want to see what they got. Not only in those two, you look at a Cam Fowler, he's another guy, but 33 years old. Last year of the contract, worked well with Colton Parayko, BK, as you guys know. But where do you see his future? Is he going to continue to play at a level where he can play top pair with Colton Parayko? We'll see, but you don't want to get into a 3-4 year contract probably with a guy who's 33 years old. So I don't anticipate anything, but you never know.
You can find JR's latest mailbag pieces over at The Athletic. He also wrote a news story today. Again, Milan Lucic is a new St. Louis Blue via PTO, so we'll see what he can bring to the team as we get into training camp. Jeremy Rutherford will be there to cover it all, and he'll be here to join us weekly here on BK and Ferrario. JR, appreciate the time as always, man. We'll talk with you again next week.
Thanks, boys. Talk to you later.
You got it. That's Jeremy Rutherford joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here on BK and Ferrario. Appreciate his time as always. T-Bone, one thing that I just want to add here real quick, because to be just full disclosure here, I had completely forgotten about this, and it was not mentioned in the news stories that I mentioned earlier today, but it's been brought up a number of times on the text line, and I do think it is worth at least mentioning here. Milan Lucic, one of the things that was part of why he hasn't been in the NHL over the last year or two is because he was accused by his wife of a domestic violence incident. And the charges have since, it is worth noting, been dropped. She did not testify against him, so those charges were indeed dropped. What I had seen was that he was a part of the NHL's player assistance program. I don't know if that is associated with this or not, but those allegations are serious. They are not anything worth downplaying. And to be just totally candid with you guys, I had not seen that associated with this news story. And so I had just forgotten that being a part of why he was not in the league over the last 18 or so months. So worth mentioning, that is a part of why he was not on a roster, and it is definitely a part of the story of the Blues signing him. Coming up here in about 15 minutes or so, the Cardinals made the obvious decision yesterday. It's just confusing to us why it took them so long to get here. And next, better to forget it here on 101 ESPN.
You can now listen to 101 ESPN on demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company.
Enter to win for a huge party pack of sliders and fries from Small's Sliders right now at 101ESPN.com. Small's Sliders is famous for serving up the freshest cooked-to-order cheeseburger sliders, crispy seasoned waffle fries, and they have even teamed up with Dr. Pepper for the brand new Dr. Pepper Swirl Shake, available for a limited time. Now with 2 locations in Bridgeton and their newest spot located at 15751 Manchester Road in Ellisville. Get entered to win that delicious party pack of sliders and fries from Small Sliders right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Vegas sets them up, and we're here to make the call. It's BK and Ferrario's Bet It or Forget It on 101 ESPN.
Presented by Circus Sports Illinois. Sports betting the way it should be.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. T-Bone, I'm going to start with some Mizzou talk here on the show. Bet it or forget it, Mizzou will name a starting quarterback prior to their opening week regular season game.
So that's a week from Thursday.
Bet it or forget it. At some point in the next 8 days, Missouri will name a starting quarterback.
I'm going to say forget it. The way Drink has done this in the past, and when I say past, it's really been like, guess
Just
what,
once.
1 year. He didn't name a starter for Brady Cook versus Sam Horn.
Correct.
And he went into that game and had both of them play. Now it became very clear from watching that game, okay, so Brady Cook's the starter. You don't have to announce it for me, Drink. I can read the tea leaves.
Yeah.
I'll say forget it. I don't think they will name a starter, but I think after the first half, you're going to have an idea of who the starting quarterback is. Because I don't think they're going to do Horn plays 8 quarter, then Pabula plays a quarter. I think it's going to be one guy gets the first half, will throw the football around, and then the other guy will go in the second half during the quote-unquote garbage time and be handing the football off, so you'll have an idea.
So it was interesting to me. Yesterday, it was kind of became a thing on Mizzou Twitter that they hadn't announced any quarterback and that both quarterbacks were announced as captains for the team. And some people were like, yeah, Ohio State and Notre Dame also have not named their starting quarterback. Since then, both have named their starter. Here's a key difference. Notre Dame is playing Miami in their opener, and Ohio State, I believe, is playing against Texas. So those teams need to announce a starter. Missouri does not. Missouri is not playing against a Texas or a Miami. They are playing against a team that they should absolutely beat, and it should not be competitive by the time that we get to the second half of the game. I'm forgetting this. I don't think that they're going to name a starter prior to week 1 either, and I don't think they should. I think this is the right way to handle it if these two are close. Go let them play. I would give them each a quarter in the first half and then play it by ear from there, but I think this is the right way to go about it personally when you have a competition and you have a directional type of a school going into week 1.
I am most definitely forgetting it. So for everybody out there who thinks there's going to be some sort of an announcement, a proclamation after Mizzou wraps up fall camp here in 40 or so minutes, it's not going to happen. I resigned myself to that weeks ago, and it's not a problem whatsoever. Tanner, you made that remark about 2023, how, after the first quarter and change, it basically seemed like a foregone conclusion. The Derby, it belonged to Brady Cook. I will actually go one step farther here and say not only will you see both quarterbacks for extended stretches next Thursday in Columbia, that following weekend against Kansas, both will also get reps. I'm not saying there won't be a favorite at that point. No, I'm serious. No, I'm serious.
No, I'm not.
I really think so.
I'm not doubting that you believe that, and you might be right. I think if you're doing that as Missouri, you probably don't have a quarterback, would be my answer.
What if it's just for running plays?
Boom.
Like if they use Bo Prabula, 3rd and 5, bring him in as a specific package. That I don't care about.
Yeah, that's not as big a deal.
Teams have done that in the past with Justin Fields, for example. Or they, like early in Tim Tebow's career, his entire role was that. Short yardage situation. I'm coming, was it Chris Leak, I think at the time, that was Florida's starting quarterback?
Yeah.
Tebow would come in, 3rd and 2, battering ram, boom, I'm going to go score for you, or I'm going to go convert this 3rd down. That I could see. If they're utilizing them and like, you get a drive, he gets a drive. You get a quarter, he gets a quarter, whatever. If that's the case by week 2, I think you've got a problem. But specific packages, I'm fine with.
Yeah, that I agree with. I think if it's specific packages, that is fine. But the way that Bradford said that, I was reading what you were saying. They kind of alternate drives. They play a quarter. If you got that, you know how many quarterbacks you have? The answer 0.
Since again, that's all I'm saying.
Guys, bet it or forget it. Nolan Gorman will be the Cardinals' starting second baseman opening day 2026.
I'm going to forget it even if I think it might make sense.
You said starting second baseman.
Yeah.
Forgetting it. In the lineup? Perhaps. There at second, I still think that belongs, the keystone belongs to Donnie.
I think I'm leaning towards bet it. I think he will be here. He will start at second base. And then I think Donnie will be traded. And then I don't know what they're doing with Weatherholt, because I still believe Arenado's going to be the third baseman to come opening day 2026. So everything gets more complicated, but I would bet it. I think they're going to lean in towards we don't have another guy like this in the organization.
All right. Guys, don't fret. I'm not using up too much of the college football content here, but Cade Klubnik, quarterback, of course, he's making the rounds in advance of Clemson's Week 1 opener against LSU. You have Texas, Ohio State, and Clemson LSU. So talking about a trying 2023, things were markedly better in the 24 season, but two-parter for bet it or forget it. One, Klubnik is a top 2 finisher in Heisman voting, and he is a top 8 selection in next April's NFL draft.
Forget both of them.
Wow. Decisive.
Forget it and forget it. I'm not buying into the
Klubnik's so overrated.
hype.
Man.
I think he's fine. He does nothing for me. So I'm forgetting both of these things.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I would forget them both as well. Cade Klubnik's been like the recent string of Clemson quarterbacks, very overrated at the university and only talked about because it's Clemson. So I don't think he's a guy that's going to finish second in the Heisman. I think Clemson's going to disappoint once again this year, and I know they got to the playoff last year. But I think they're going to be a fringe playoff team. They might sneak their way in. You're going to look at Klubnik and go, boy, you wish there was more, and I don't see any path to him being a top 10 pick in the NFL draft.
I think a lot of evaluators out there, they have been thinking for some time, okay, there has to be more. There's untapped potential. But given the body of work last season, the numbers, were they hollow? Did they not do anything for you? I thought there was a market improvement.
I thought he was good. I would not put him in the conversation of, like top 5 quarterbacks that I watched last year.
Agreed. Yeah.
Personally.
ACC competition. There we go.
Yep. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. Let's get to a few of these from the text line or from YouTube. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL if you want to put them in over there as well. Bet It or Forget It, guys. The Dallas Cowboys will win the NFC East this year. Forget it. I think the Eagles are the best team in the NFL until proven otherwise. I will give them that respect. They've earned it.
Yeah, I'm forgetting this as well. I don't even think they're the second best team in the division. I think that belongs to the Commanders. That one's closer than the first place, but I would still lean Commanders for second place in the East.
Eagles win running away in that division, and the Cowboys have a real problem in the event that Dak goes down again. Have you seen the unsightly performances from the would-be backup there in Big D this year?
Let me tell you about what I think about if I'm watching their backups in the preseason. You're bleeped if they show up in the regular season.
Hey. Better to forget it. Matthew Joseph will be traded or waived prior to the start of the season. I'll bet this. I don't think he's going to make the opening night roster.
I'm going to forget it. I'm going to give him the slight edge over Lucic, who's coming in. And I think him and Texier will serve as like the 14th/15th forward for the team.
It's a lot of forwards.
You get 3 scratches, right? So 2 forwards, 1 defenseman?
Yeah.
I think I mathed that right. I mean, math's not our specialty, but I think that's right.
I'm betting this one, and it's irrespective of today's news with respect to that professional Trout. You saw him last season for extended stretches. You saw him for 60 games. I still think there's a large contingent of the audience here wanting to actually see more of the upside maybe from a Texier. I don't even think he gets to 30 games this coming season, but Joseph would seem to me to be the guy on the way out.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Bet it or forget it. J.J. Weatherholt will be the Cardinals' second baseman of the future. J.J. Weatherholt, second baseman of the future for the Cardinals. I'll say better. I think that's his future position.
I think that will be where he settles in long term. I don't know what they'll do when he first gets here, but I would bet this, even though I just said Gorman is the starting second baseman opening day 2026. I can see Weatherholt getting up in June, taking that job, or maybe they try him at third base, but he hasn't done a lot of that in the minors. But you said this yesterday. in that piece on, was it Baseball America, Baseball Perspectives?
No, it was just a random one, but it was a good one.
He mentioned how second base is most comfortable. If that's where he's most comfortable, if you're the Cardinals, why wouldn't you play him there? So I would say bet this.
I'll bet it as well. It just makes too much sense. Why not actually roll with a position at which the guy has a premium amount of experience, unlike what you saw as far as the development there of Jordan Walker. Third base is interesting, but I'll go with second. It's natural.
To give them their credit, justbaseball.com is where this interview was with J.J. Weatherholtz. A writer by the name of Emily Walden did this. Justbaseball.com. It was really good, and he gave some good insight into his approach, how he has become more power over contact at the AAA level, why that has been the case, and where he feels most comfortable. It's well worth your time. All right, bet it or forget it. Last one here. The Bills or the Ravens will take down the Chiefs this year in the playoffs, overcoming their roadblock to the Super Bowl. Bet it or forget it, somebody, either the Bills or the Ravens, will beat the Chiefs in the playoffs this year.
Boy, I really want to say bet it because, man, I'm tired of seeing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Just like we gave the Eagles the credit in the NFC, I'm going to give the Chiefs the credit. I'm going to forget this. Till I see them lose in the playoffs before getting to the Super Bowl, I am not going to count them out. And their weapons should be really good once again this year. It doesn't feel like as much of a question mark in that wide receiver room as it has been in recent years. I'm going to say forget this. I think the Chiefs are still the top dog in the AFC.
Yeah, I can't possibly bet this one either because you have to prove it to me. Number one, that Kansas City isn't able to actually obtain the number one seed in the conference, period. If you're going through Arrowhead Stadium as the path, I still don't trust in a Baltimore, in a Buffalo to be able to do the job. And one of the most important things here to monitor, that timeline when you're talking about getting your grade A number one threat back. Rice's status won't be in question there. I believe in a bounce back for Pacheco. Let's go Chiefs in that department.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs will indeed go to the Super Bowl once again. Hot take. I believe it's going to happen. Coming up next, the Cardinals made the obvious decision yesterday, but what took them so long to get there? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
We've got your chance to win a 4-pack of passes to Monster Jam. Saturday, September 20th at the Dome at America's Center. Get ready to cheer, scream, and be amazed as massive Monster Jam trucks and world champion drivers take over St. Louis for the ultimate day packed with high-flying action and jaw-dropping stunts.
Get all the info and enter to win that free 4-pack of tickets for Monster Jam. Now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
Jamie Rivers here with Katie from Elite Comfort Experts. Let's
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Redbirds snap 5-game skid. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Bolstered by the return of Wilson Contreras to the lineup on Monday, St. Louis vanquished Miami 8-3. Number 40 tallying 2 singles in his first appearance since August 12th, while Alec Burleson had 3 hits. This afternoon, Ollie Marmelson's 25-year-old righty Michael McGreevy up against Edward Cabrera. First pitch scheduled for 5:40 p.m. Right now, Mizzou football finds itself concluding fall camp. Next week brings that regular season opener with Central Arkansas. Last night, NFL-wise, Cincinnati cruised past Washington 31-17. Your Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK, I was just listening to Ollie Marmol on with KMOX. He does their Gas House Gang show each and every Tuesday. And T-Bone, we were planning already to talk about the Brendan Donovan decision. They officially yesterday placed Donnie on the IL. That's retroactive because he's already missed 3 days, and now he was getting ready to miss a 4th. And this is after having missed a little bit of time prior to that as well. The question was always, why not just place him on the IL? This guy's been dealing with his toe issue for a month, 2 months actually, and now it has become a groin issue that he's also dealing with. He says it's affecting his swing. Why wasn't this made sooner? Here's what Ollie Marmol had to say just moments ago on the Gas House Gang.
Yeah, if you have something better below that you feel comfortable playing, then sure. So part of it is taking your best shot. And up till now, we took our best shot. And then you start to read the room a little bit. And but up till now, we were going to take our best shot. And anything that was going to replace him was not going to be nearly as good at what we feel Donovan's capable of doing, even when he's not 100%. So if we had depth, absolutely, we don't.
It's pretty honest.
Yeah.
Pretty honest by the manager on why they made the decision that they did. And I think it speaks to a couple of things. One, man, their depth is really not good. And I never want to hear about the 40-man roster again. And two, boy, if they think Brendan Donovan is significantly better than any other options, and Donnie has been a below league average hitter over the last 2 months now.
By a significant portion, by the way.
Like, since July 1st, Brendan Donovan is batting .240, getting on base 30% of the time, and he's only slugging .340. His OPS is right around .650, which is pretty well below league average this year. If that's your best bet here, if that's your best chance to continue winning, is him hobbled, not swinging a good bat, and really over the last month is when it's got significantly worse. In the last month, he's batting .218 with an on-base percentage below 300 and no pop. If that's your best chance, it speaks to where you're at right now as a club. And I do think there's a pretty strong case to be made that maybe it wasn't their best bet. Like, maybe they do have other options. They've got a guy named J.J. Weatherholt, for example, that maybe you could call up right now and give yourself a chance. But boy, if that's not a telling quote by your manager, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, their depth is unbelievably thin. And to your point on the 40-man roster, I mean, he just said basically plain out loud, like, we did not want Jose Fermin here because 70% of Brendan Donovan is better than 100% of Jose Fermin. And that's what it took them, whatever it was, 3-4 days to put him on the IL. I mean, they are in a bad spot as an organization, not with just the big league club. Because you look at the big league club, like, you got some good pieces, you're missing a star, but they're about what you would expect about a 500 team. It's more of the worrying signs that are coming from the minor leagues. There's no pitching depth that is down there. I mean, if they had an injury to their starting staff, I have no idea who their starter would be. I guess the old man Wilkerson that's down there. Maybe Curtis Taylor, who's also an older man at about 30 years old. That's not great. The fact that you don't have a young arm to call up. And then the position player side, they basically just said that with their actions. And Ollie said it right there, man. We have nothing to help us down in the minor league level. And it's why they've decided to wait so long on multiple injury decisions this year. Think back to Nootbaar prior to the All-Star break. He was getting multiple days off while he was dealing with that thing in his rib cage area. And they're saying, hey, we got to just kind of ease our way through this and see if we can get by. They've been playing with like a 26-man roster all season long, and that is not where you need to be as an organization.
Yeah, somebody on the text line said, guys, why do they refuse to play Jose Fermin? Because they don't think he's good. I'm not telling you have to agree with their decision there, but that's clearly their opinion on the matter. So this is not a baseball player that can help them in any meaningful way. He's 26 years old. He's been a career minor leaguer, and they don't think that he is a meaningful contributor at this level. That's where they're at. I don't think that they feel like any of these guys that are potentially on the cusp of getting up to the big leagues can really help them. Michael Ciani, I don't think they think he can help them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have brought up Nathan Church to be that player for them. They're really severely lacking in options when you go down to the AAA level. And I'm talking about pitching-wise. T-Bone has mentioned that. They've got a lot of options on the bullpen side of things.
Yeah,
that was the one area that they kind of managed well this season. And they had guys going on that Memphis shuttle. It was a really good thing for them. On the position player side of things, and certainly on the starting pitching side, they're not just thin. They have zero depth. They have nothing to pull from the minor league level. TK Roby is hurt. Thought maybe at one point Simmer Bursa could have been an option this year. He has been hurt all season long. Quinn Matthews has not been as he's not been as good this year. So when you lack effectiveness and health, boy, you run out of options incredibly quickly. And on the position player side of things, they're not interested in any of these dudes, apparently. Yeah. At least not right now. Maybe eventually that changes with J.J. Weatherholt. But, man, if you're not going to call him up now, because the rookie spot, that's over. Now you don't have to worry about him losing his eligibility for Rookie of the Year next year because we've already passed that date. Now it is about playing time, A, and I'm talking about like the number of plate appearances. He's not going to get enough. And B, whether or not you want to start his clock. He's done basically everything you could ask for down at AAA. I'm not, if you were going to call him up, this would be the time to do so. T-Bone, my guess as of today is that he's not going to get called up this year.
Yeah, I was skeptical of it to begin with just because of the lack of playing time. But the fact that they're not willing to do it now for this Brendan Donovan injury makes me really think he's not going to be a guy that they call up and they want to wait and kind of clear up the logjam once they get to the offseason and maybe give him a shot at opening day or do the Super 2 status thing going into next season as well. But yeah, I think I'm with you. Unless they truly think that Donnie just needs the minimum of 10 days, and at this point you've already taken up 3 or 4 of those days, okay, then maybe I could see how you say it's not worth just 6 games up here or 5 games up here. But this feels like it's going to be longer than that for Brendan Donovan. It feels like it's going to need more than just the minimum, the way that he's kind of talking.
He's been dealing with that for 2 months. So
yeah, I think this would have been the time that if you were going to do the call-up of J.J. Weatherholt, when it makes the most sense. Now, sure, you are squeezing out one of Sajaci or Gorman for playing time. You could just platoon them at third base if you wanted to and guarantee Weatherholt the starting spot at second base.
So we got a couple of texts that I think are worthy of responding to. First, from the 314, then why is Jose Fermin on the 40-man? Another one. When was the last time that we were right in the minor league talent? These are correlated. He's on the 40-man roster right now because they don't have anybody else that they want to be on the 40-man roster right now, and it's easy to remove him in the offseason. Mm-hmm. That's part of this. You don't want to just add guys to add them for no reason. You can get yourself into some trouble there. Now, the Cardinals haven't in the past. They're very cautious about all of this stuff, overly so in my opinion. But that's part of this. Is Matt Koperniak is on the roster because they thought coming into the season maybe he would be somebody that would provide depth for them. That hasn't necessarily been the case. They clearly haven't liked the profile enough to give him any opportunities at the big league level. Michael Ciani, last year, had a real role for this team and helped them in some ways. This year, obviously, they don't value him as much. Otherwise, Nathan Church wouldn't be here right now. And then you look at guys like Garrett Hampson and Jose Fermin. Man, these are 4A players. Every team in Major League Baseball has a couple of these littered throughout their organization. And they just consistently will transfer teams. They'll have like 5 to 7 years in the big leagues of getting 40 games a year. And they're just there, right? And for some teams, they become almost like folk heroes because they come up, have a cup of coffee, have a few big moments, go back down. You just always remember them fondly.
I always remember Jeremy Hazelbaker.
See?
Hazelbaker. What did I say?
Close enough. I think you were thinking of like, was it Hazelhaker? Whatever.
It was Hazel Raker.
Yeah, Hazel Raker. That's what it is.
Yeah. Okay, maybe he's not that.
You have some moments and then you leave. But for the Cardinals, they have needed them to be more than that. That's not what you want out of these guys. So they're on the 40-man roster to be removed from the 40-man roster. That's the honest answer. This offseason, they provide your opportunity to add somebody new to the roster. As for the last time that they had a pretty good depth situation, it's been a few years now, at least.
22, maybe?
Probably.
They would have had Yepes. Newbar was first coming up. Donovan was first coming up. They added Burleson late that year. Gorman made his debut. So it's probably 2022 with the current group of players you have now when they first arrived. That'd be my guess.
It's been a while, and somebody else mentioned on the text line, 314-399-9646, that's the Air Comfort Service text line from the 618. Why does it matter so much to them about giving it their best shot? They're clearly not pushing for a playoff spot. I think that's part of why this decision was made. When Ollie says we read the room, I think what he read was the standings. I mean, he's saying, hey, look, we are now 18 games back in our division. Let me read that one more time. They're 18 games back in their division, and they're now 5 games back of a playoff spot with 2 teams to jump. They're not in the playoff race any longer. And I think they're finally coming to that realization, maybe a little bit late, but they're coming to that realization at both the front office level and at the manager on the field level. And when you do, all right, listen, kind of similar to 2023 when Donnie needed to get that elbow situation fixed. Maybe now you do the same thing here. Hey, Donnie, you've been playing through turf toe. It's now moved up to your groin. Let's go ahead and take some time off. Let's reassess the situation. Let's see where you're at, and we'll get this thing figured out in the next 7 to 10 days and see if you're ready to go and you're feeling a little bit better. And maybe that will give you better production down the stretch. But right now, it doesn't make sense for us to continue to push you. So I think that is where they've arrived. Should it have taken this long to get there? Probably not. I think that they've been there, realistically speaking, for a little while. But I think it's harder to convince yourself of that when you're inside than it is for us to look at it from the outside and say that.
Yeah, well, like if it's the coaching staff and the players, I get how even after post-deadline, you get the comments, I think it was Donnie right after the deadline of, hey, like, why not us? Okay, yeah, that's how they're supposed to be. The front office is the one that's supposed to be making the tougher call, right? The front office should have been the one that said earlier, Donnie, dude, like, it's time to go on the IL. We're not really in this thing. We sold at the deadline, for crying out loud, which is a clear signal of you're not a playoff team. The front office should have gotten here quicker if they weren't, because I think they were the ones that were also lagging behind. I could see the coaching staff and the players. It's their job to go out there and win the ball games in the here and now. So I can see how it takes them a little longer to get to the fate of, hey, we're not a playoff team this year. Front office is the one that can't be lagging behind. The front office is the one that has to make the tougher decisions. And when you sold on July 31st, that was the first sign of, hey, we're not a playoff team. Yet I continue to go. Every time I hear Mo say it, he's always referencing, hey, we're not that far back in the standings.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Why aren't you guys calling Donovan injury prone like you did for O'Neal anytime that he missed time? Because Donnie played 126, 153, and so far this year, 110 games. In his 4 seasons in the big leagues, he's missed more than 40 games once, and that was in 2023. You could say he gets banged up more often than you'd like, though. I think that's a fair critique of Brendan Donovan. Like, he plays his ass off, and sometimes it can, like, he runs himself almost into the ground. So if you wanted to make that claim and say he runs out of gas, you could do it. I wouldn't necessarily have a whole lot of ammo to push back on that. But I would also say over the last 3 seasons, OPS plus-wise, 114, 113, 112. He's been incredibly consistent offensively. So he has shown consistency at the plate that Tyler O'Neill never did. And he has played far more and shown an ability to play through things far more than Tyler O'Neill ever did. So I do think they're very different situations, with the one caveat of, yeah, Brendan Donovan does seem to have some nagging injuries that have hampered him over the last few seasons. That, to me, is fair.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's somewhat fair, but the comparison to O'Neal is not. I mean, you think about when O'Neal had his great season, everything had to be perfect, right? Pressure wasn't on. They were playing good baseball. He was healthy. When O'Neal was hurt, like, O'Neal wasn't just, like, hurt. He was unproductive. That year that Donnie had that elbow redone by his arm, 284 average, 114 OPS plus. This guy was playing without his right arm for half the year, and he still was 15% above league average.
The Cardinals basically told, and he went all the way up until the deadline when they sold, and the Cardinals said, Donnie, you got to shut it down, dude. It's time to go ahead and relax and get this thing taken care of so you're ready to go for 2024. He did. They figured it out, and then he was good to go for 2024. With T-Bone in Bradford on BK. Coming up next, time for the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
Saturday, college football is back on ESPN. Kansas and Fresno State. Pregame at 5, kickoff at 5:30. The NCAA plays on 101 ESPN. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The junk drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Timon, I feel like we're living in some kind of a horror movie, but it's at the very beginning stages of the horror film. And I'm talking not about anything that people might be thinking about right now.
Good.
I'm talking about rabbits that are growing horns in the state of Colorado. I'm not making this up. This is a real thing that is currently taking place, and they're considered to be, quote-unquote, Frankenstein bunnies. Let me read from this story for you. The rabbits appear to have black quills or toothpicks and a scabbish-looking growth over their face, according to some Fort Collins residents in a local news outlet, 9 News. Others have dubbed them as the Frankenstein rabbits. The dark growths, according to this news story, are most likely caused by a virus that pops up in the summer in states like Colorado, South Dakota, Minnesota, Kansas, Iowa, and Texas. This virus causes some kind of a wart-like growth on the rabbit's face, and it is spread through biting insects or fleas or ticks. So now we've got rabbits that are just wandering around the state of Colorado with these horns growing from what appears to be like their head/ear area. I've seen stuff like this in movies before. Now they're saying this is not anything that we should be overly concerned about. They can't really transmit this to humans. We shouldn't be worried. T-Bone, I'm a little worried, first of all, because it looks terrifying. And second of all, I was just in Colorado. I was like 30 minutes away from these Frankenstein rabbits, and I don't need any of that stuff, man.
Yeah, I saw these things. These things look terrifying, and it almost looks kind of like stuff that you saw. Like, did you watch the show The Last of Us?
No, I did not. But
first off, recommend. But
I'm familiar. Yeah.
The Last of Us, they've got the fungi, cordyceps, and they got these stuff like growing from their heads where they're like zombies, but they've got that. That's what it looks like. And then on top of that, I also saw that there's also zombie squirrels in areas of the world where they are covered in oozing warts, and they look something like this, BK, where they've got just these oozing spots coming from their
what the hell, dude?
Side. I know. It's tough being an animal these days.
Keep it over there. Keep it over there, please.
I know we've had the murder hornets. We went through a global pandemic. Really, the thing that concerns me the most is Frankenstein bunnies. Top 10 on my list. Like, apparently a Category 5 hurricane that, became that in 24 hours.
That's pretty high up.
We've got that going on one side of the coast. We've got Frankenstein bunnies on the other side of we've got seemingly every night dozens more of these stupid cicadas that are being added to my front porch.
Here we go.
Those are annoying.
This is not the time of the year that I particularly
Zombie
enjoy.
squirrels.
We got one more week till football season, and we'll be able to make it through after that. That's going to be the thing that gets us through.
That would have been really interesting for you to have had to explain to Luca, hey, you have this idyllic setup. You have the perfect getaway, right? The perfect vacation. Daddy, what's going on there? They don't look like the picture book material.
Let me tell you about Frankenstein bunnies. Coming up in 15 minutes, Mizzou and Illinois both getting disrespected by the national media. We'll talk about it in just a little bit. But next, who do you want to be in the Cardinals division beyond this year? Is there anybody other than the Cubs that you really care about in that regard? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN has your chance to win a pair of tickets to the St. Louis Blues home opener against the Minnesota Wild on October 9th at Enterprise Center. Blues hockey is right around the corner, and single game tickets for the 2025-26 season go on sale this Friday at 10 a.m. This upcoming Blues season is stacked with great matchups, can't miss giveaways, and fan favorite theme nights. Get more details and get entered to win a pair of free tickets for the Blues home opener now either at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
Let's go!
KXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Krugman Law Firm. You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK. So there was a lot of discussion yesterday after Rob Manfred mentioned on the Sunday night broadcast, hey, there's going to be some realignment coming. I think we all kind of knew that. There was likely to be 2 teams added via expansion. Seems like the leading candidates for that are Portland/Utah, depending on which West Coast city they prefer to go to. And then on the Eastern Coast, they prefer like Carolina. I think it's mostly been Raleigh. There's some Charlotte conversation, or Nashville. Those are the 2 spots on this side of the country that seemingly are getting a little bit more play. But 2 of those get to 32, and then, yes, you're going to have to change the divisional format in one way or another once you get to that. Maybe you go to 4 divisions, 8 divisions in total, but 4 for each league that have 4 teams in each of them, or you stick with the 3 and then it's uneven, depending on how you want to do it. But you got to change it in some way, shape, or form. I want to re-listen to this quote from Rob Manfred, because I do want to focus our conversation not just on the divisional format that is likely to change, but also on what specifically he says that will influence the way they will structure the postseasons. Take a listen. This is Rob Manfred on Sunday Night Baseball via ESPN.
I think if we expand, it provides us with an opportunity to geographically realign. I think we could save a lot of wear and tear on our players in terms of travel. And I think our postseason format would be even more appealing for, entities like ESPN, because you'd be playing up out of the East, out of the West, and that 10 o'clock time slot where we, sometimes get Boston, Anaheim, would be 2 West Coast teams, and that 10 o'clock slot that's a problem for us sometimes becomes a real opportunity for our West Coast audience.
Okay, so that's what he had to say. It's not just the realignment there. It's also we want our West Coast teams playing West Coast teams. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, that I don't know.
Because that would seemingly completely restructure the leagues. I think most people have been focusing on the divisions. Guys, that's easy. That's not a hard thing to accomplish. Like, you can go through and just geographically look at it, and it's like, okay, well, basically you're changing a couple of teams. Mm-hmm. The divisions, that's more similar to like when Houston was realigned into the American League. That's the kind of change that you would make if you're doing the divisions. If you want to change it to where we no longer have to worry about East Coast teams traveling to the West, that is a league change. That means the Mets and the Dodgers are no longer in the same league. That is a much more dramatic shift in the way that baseball is structured, looking more similar to what the NHL has, where they are more regionally aligned in the Eastern Conference versus the Western Conference. And yes, you still have situations like St. Louis playing in Calgary in a playoff game, right? Or St. Louis playing in Seattle. And you do have some time slots that aren't ideal, but it does reduce a New York team or a Miami team traveling all the way to the West Coast prior to the Stanley Cup final. So it avoids some of those bigger issues that the leagues run into in the playoff structure. T-Bone, to me, this sounds like he is talking about a complete reformatting of the sport, the likes of which we really have never seen before. Is that something you believe there's an appetite for?
That I don't know. I think there might be, but then it comes down to, so I think the West Coast wouldn't mind that, right? I think the West Coast Dodgers fans, Angels fans, they won't mind this idea of shifting into the West plays the West in the playoffs, and that way they don't have this issue of like the Mets, for example, being a team that they play. Same with East Coast fans, right? I think New York fans don't want to be watching the Yankees play the Dodgers when it's a, what would that be, 10, 11 o'clock start out east when they start those baseball games. that I think they like. I think in the Midwest is where it will get interesting for what those fan bases think about this, because it's hard to look at the map and figure out how they're going to draw this up without assuming that the Cardinals are probably going into whatever the Western Conference would become.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. I think the Eastern Conference is actually pretty easy, and there's one place left. So the Eastern Conference, what I have, and T-Bone, tell me if you think any of these are like Bradford, same thing, geographically not aligned.
Okay.
Toronto, Boston, New York, Baltimore, basically the AL East.
Okay.
Detroit, Cleveland, the New York Mets, Phillies, Washington Nationals, Pittsburgh, and then whatever the new team is, Nashville/Carolina, Atlanta, Tampa, Miami, and then Cincinnati.
Yeah.
That's 15 teams. Without even having one that is up for debate, all of those teams are in the Eastern Conference, quote unquote, and then you would add one of the following to that mix. The White Sox or Cubs, Minnesota, Milwaukee, St. Louis, or Kansas City. I think Kansas City would absolutely be out because they're west of us.
Yeah, agreed.
So you're really talking about Milwaukee, Chicago, Minnesota, or Milwaukee, Chicago, or Minnesota, most likely.
Yeah, and I would say it's probably down to Milwaukee and one of the Chicago teams, because Minnesota's a little bit further west of you as well. So I think you would see, I don't know if they would split up Cubs, White Sox, so they might just default put the Brewers then in the East, and then there you go. Now your 16 teams in the West would be Seattle, Las Vegas, San Fran, both LA teams, San Diego, Arizona, Colorado, Houston, Texas, KC, St. Louis, 2 Chicago teams, Minnesota, and the expansion team that goes to Portland or Utah,
and
wherever
boom,
they go.
You've got to split up.
There you go.
And that's geographically aligned. And then within those 2 pods, you have now created your divisional formats. So the Cardinals will no longer, in this scenario, be in a division with Cincinnati or Milwaukee. Those 2 are in a new pod. You could have Chicago, both the White Sox and the Cubs in this division. Maybe Kansas City becomes a new member of this, and then St. Louis. So you'd have the 2 Chicago teams, St. Louis and Kansas City. So it's all very geographically aligned. All those teams would be very close to one another. And if you're looking at it just from a market size perspective, it makes some sense. Obviously, the Cubs are more, upper tier than the rest of that division. But they operate the way that some of these other teams do. How would you guys feel about that? Because I do think there are some in St. Louis that like this division. But overall, again, I'm an outsider, so I can't speak to all of the history within the division. But my understanding, my perspective on this is really the pull is the Cubs. And as long as Cardinals and Cubs remain in the same division, I don't know how much of an uproar there would be if the rest of the division changed overnight for the Cardinals. Am I misreading that, in your guys' opinion?
I don't think so, because I think as long as you keep Cardinals-Cubs together, that's really the only rivalry that's more natural and not based on competition. Like, you think back to when the Cardinals and, Astros were a rival. That was more on the competition. They were always meeting in the NLDS or NLCS in the early 2000s when you had Albert in his prime leading the Cardinals.
Sure.
I don't get the sense that the Brewers are like this big rival. Now, when the Brewers are good and fighting with you in the playoffs, then they become a rival, but that's kind of short-lasting. Same with the Reds. The Reds had their moment where Brandon Phillips was fighting Yachty, and that was a rivalry, but that lasted, 3 years until Phillips left town, and then when Phillips left, it was, okay, it's the Reds. So I think the only one for me, as long as you keep the Cubs in the division, and then I don't care if it's the White Sox, the Brewers, the Twins, the Royals, pick whoever you want else to be the other 2 teams if you do a 4-team division. I don't really care about the other 2, long as you have Cardinals-Cubs, where I would have more of the uproars if they are in the Western Conference, because we complain about West Coast hockey games, right, in the playoffs. Okay, now let's throw the Cardinals into that as well, because playing the Seattle Mariners or the LA Dodgers in a playoff series, which you have a chance to do now, by the way, you do have that chance, but now it's all on the West Coast, and you're much more guaranteed to be thrown into that late time slot than they are right now.
It comes and goes in cycles when it comes to your rivals, with the exception plainly of the Chicago Cubs. Tanner, you mentioned obviously the fact that before moving to the American League, Houston for a number of years, yeah, you had a lot of offensive mainstays. It was fun because you had the competitive aspect there. Over the past few seasons, Milwaukee has basically stepped into that void, especially when the Cubs had that period of brief irrelevance there. But from a Cardinals fan standpoint, from a local regional standpoint too, it's not as if you have had any vested interest in seeing the Cardinals square off against the Reds now for years on end. That Brandon Phillips fiasco, that was fun for just a brief period of time. The Pittsburgh Pirates, you haven't been able to stomach watching that team, those matchups now, for a very, very long time. So I agree insofar as long as that rivalry, that natural rivalry with the Cubs is maintained, anything and everybody else is basically on the cusp of being able to go. I don't think that you absolutely have to keep anybody else as long as you're joined at the hip with Chicago.
Yeah, and if you put these together and you go with a four team divisions in each league, it kind of makes some sense for the most part. Like Seattle, the expansion team, Vegas, and the Angels could be one, and then it's Colorado, Texas, Houston, and San Francisco could be another, and then LA, the Dodgers, San Diego, Arizona, and this is where one team's going to get screwed, either Kansas City or Minnesota, most likely. One of them would have to be in that pod with the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Diamondbacks, and that's not exactly geographically aligned, but you just don't have that 12th West Coast Pacific-based team to put in there, and then that leaves St. Louis, the two Chicago teams, and then whoever is remaining between Kansas City and Minnesota. You can make this work. And now that the rules are all the same between the National League and the American League, it doesn't truly matter on that front. But I do think this would really tick off some old school baseball fans. The fact that the National League, like the name of it, either would just completely go away, or it would be something that is so foreign that there's no real remembrance of what the National League once was. Like, can you imagine if the National League suddenly became the league that had Seattle, Portland/Utah, Vegas, the Angels, Texas, Houston, Kansas City, the White Sox, and the Minnesota Twins?
It's mostly AL teams.
That's not the National League, right? And no matter how you do it, it's going to be different. It's going to have half of the teams that are not what they once were, because right now you have a Western division in both of the leagues. So it's going to be really interesting, man. If they want to do it this way, and I think, honestly, as somebody that doesn't care as much about this stuff, I think it makes a lot of sense to do it this way. It does help you with your playoffs. It does help with travel, and you already have a more balanced schedule. I think it's a pretty smart thing to do. And it will create some new rivalries. It'll take some time, but over time, maybe it does end up kind of, whether it's the Royals that become the team that is in the Cardinals division, or if it's the Twins, whoever it may be, maybe there is a new rivalry that is able to emerge out of what is, a change in the way that we've done things for the last 100+ years in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, you're just trying to really sell on this is going to be fine on the. I think you're right. A lot of people may not like this.
Somebody said BK's realignment is hideous. The other guys is much better.
Who's the other guy? Brisbee?
Guy?
Mine? Who was the other guy?
Maybe they're talking about like if we just went to the new divisions within the old format. But again, if you're doing that, if you're sticking with the National League and the American League, you're just switching a couple of divisions, maybe like one team switches leagues, you don't actually accomplish the goal that Rob Manfred set out for there.
Yeah.
You're just adding a couple of teams and doing the same realignment that we did with Houston. So that's why I would say that this is potentially something that A, should be on everybody's radar, and B, might have to happen. It's something that might be necessary for Major League Baseball if they would like to change the playoff format and the way that teams are having to go out west with the time changes. So I think the Cardinals will very likely end up having a pretty significantly different looking division within the next decade.
Yeah, and then wait for the whole uproar when the playoffs is, 8 teams get in. We're doing 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7. And sure, you're in a division, but does it really matter? Like the NBA technically has divisions where it's only there just for scheduling purposes. Rob, he's really nailing it again.
Oh, somebody was talking about the athletics version. Yeah, I think that was Jim Bowden, and he just did divisional realignment.
Yeah.
He didn't really go by the regional changes that Rob Manfred was mentioning there. So if that's the way they want to go, this is the kind of thing that they would have to do. All right, coming up next, we got to talk about Mizzou and Illinois. Both are getting disrespected by the national media. Do you care? We'll talk about it next here on BK and Ferrario.
The Redbird Report, your front row seat to all things Cardinals. From the dugout to the diamond, BK and T-Bone go deep with the latest news, notes, and analysis. Watch the Redbird Report on YouTube or listen online at 101ESPN.com.
.101 ESPN has your chance to win a free pair of passes to Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Friday Night Live is back this Friday night at Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Find more details and find that chance to win a pair of free passes right now at 101ESPN.com or your 101 mobile app.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK. Quick news to pass along. T-Bone, you said that the lineup is out. I should clarify here. For any of you that play along with the lineup game for the next 10 seconds, go ahead and turn down your radio. I'll give you a 3-second countdown. 3, 2, 1. All right, T-Bone, what do you got for us? Lineup news today.
Yeah, so Nathan Church gets another start in center field for the Redbirds. And with that means there will be no Jordan Walker in the lineup today. Burley will get the start in the left. Newtbar will be in right field. No Jordan Walker today, as Ivana Herrera will serve as the DH.
Yeah. This is what they're going to do.
Yeah.
They're buying into A, runway for Nathan Church, and B, defense. Defense is the explanation. By the way, Jordan Walker, after that stretch of time where we're like, is this real?
Yeah, he's cooled off.
Is he figuring it out this time? And I was like, please don't look at the underlying numbers. They're not good. But I want to believe, well, he's won for his last 18 with 3 walks.
It's just bad luck,
and
right?
8 strikeouts. He's batting .056 with an OPS of .302. 2 total bases in that stretch. The 1 hit was a double.
All right. Well, at least it did damage on his 1 hit, Yeah.
So there you have it. Walker out of the lineup today. Hopefully he'll be back in it tomorrow against Sandy Alcantara. Easy task for him.
I think something might be biting Walker. I would avoid that matchup.
So I mentioned the fact that there's been some disrespect for both Mizzou and Illinois and the national media over the last couple of days. Let's start out with your Illini. What did you see that bothered you about Illinois recently, T-Bone?
So Stuart Mandel does a great job for The Athletic. Today released his piece on his 2025 Big Ten football predictions. And, the headline is Penn State ready for Spotlight. And I'm like, okay, he's probably going to pick them like 3rd, 4th. He's going to give them the respect that they deserve for returning their starters. And
talking about Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois. Not Penn State. Who cares about them? Then he has Penn State first, Ohio State second. I'm like, okay, this is probably about the time where we're going to see Illinois, right? 3rd or 4th. Okay, Iowa 3rd. Feels rich. Michigan 4th. Okay. And then I kept scrolling. It's not 5th, not 6th, not 7th, not 8th. 9th place. The Illinois Fighting Illini at 5-4 in the Big Ten and 7-5 overall. 7-5 overall. I saw that. And then his write-up was like, hey, they can't get away with these one-score games again, even though they're returning to most of their offense. Oh, come on, Stuart.
This is the number 12 team in the country.
What would your reaction be if Illinois went 5-4 in the Big Ten and 7-5 overall this year?
I would be very frustrated because it would be a huge disappointment. Huge disappointment from Brett Bielema and company. Because this is...
What is the bare minimum this year for you to be happy?
9. I think 9
is the
wins.
minimum for you to be... I'm saying like that's what you would consider to be a good enough, a successful season.
Well, successful season, they should be a playoff team. But...
What does the bare minimum for success look like?
I think bare minimum for success is 9-3 this season.
That is a really high bar.
I think it's the same expectations for what I said of Missouri going into that year 2 years ago, which was, hey, man, last year, where it is, hey, man, like, you only get one of these runs like once every 4 years when you're a program like Illinois, like Missouri. So you better take advantage of it, and especially when you had Missouri who had the softer portion of the SEC schedule. And I would say Illinois' version of the Big Ten is not too difficult on their schedule. And if you go 9-3, okay, yeah, there was a hiccup along the way that probably prevents you from getting to the playoff, but at least you are in the conversation to be a playoff team. You're not going to get this. You're not going to get this every year, Brett Bielema and company. So yeah, I think bare minimum 9-3 for me. Otherwise, 8-4, disappointing season.
What is the one issue or number, maybe, Tanner, of different issues that you can objectively look at and say, okay, this could be the kryptonite as far as preventing Illinois from really reaching those heights this season? Because obviously you have to take into consideration that Bryant is now gone. You hope that Altmaier, that he actually elevates, but...
How many times has Illinois won more than 8 games in the last 20 years?
Let's see. They did it last year. They
more than 8 games.
They never did it under Lovey. I think Kerry's team did it. I'll go 3 times.
Twice.
Boom. 2 times.
So when you have a moment like this, you got to take advantage of it.
And 2007. That's the entire list, T-Bone. Man, if that is like if you get to 8-4 and that's considered a disappointment, and your program is Illinois, I think you're holding them to too high of a standard.
See, this is where we disagree completely. College football is now about the playoff, these nice bowl games, these nice 8-win seasons. Oh, I think it is. You're in a Power 4 conference, and I'm not. Again, this isn't an every year expectation for me, right? I know they're probably a 6-win team after this year when Brett Bielema has to kind of rebuild everything. Hell, I wouldn't be shocked if Brett says, "Deuces, I'm out of here." This is the year you have to take advantage of it.
I'm sorry, This is going to have some tone on it. There's no other way I can put it.
At least there was a warning this time.
Illinois at Mizzou. you can't hold yourself to the same standard as the University of Missouri. Mizzou does this.
Mizzou's a garbage SEC team.
Okay,
Bottom dwellers.
Go look at Mizzou over the last 2 decades and then compare that recent history to what Illinois has done over the last two decades.
That's fair.
It's a no contest. It's no contest. If you're looking for 8-win seasons as your threshold for success, you can do that at Mizzou. Brother, you got about 5 to 10 more years before you can have that as your bare minimum level of success at a place like Illinois. You better put together a few more of these quality years. You've done it 2 of the last 3, and that's the first time that you've done that in a 2 out of 3 seasons, I think, since the late 90s, early 2000s. Dude, when were you born?
99.
Yeah, since you were born, this is the first time they've done it. So, hey, if that's the threshold that you want to hold them to, God bless you. That feels like you're waiting for your team to set you up for disappointment this year.
And maybe they do. I'm not lowering expectations.
Okay.
I mean, when you get ranked in the top 12 to begin a season, there's legitimate hype and a legitimate belief in what that program is. Not for the long run. I'm not saying this is going to become a consistent 8-win team. That I'm realistic about.
Sure.
Again, I think they're probably a 6-win team would be my guess in 2026, even though they have a nice recruiting class. It's about the here and now. It's not about what the past was, because they hired Lovie Smith for crying out loud.
Maybe it's not, but history in college football matters. And it does, like somebody on the text line just mentioned, guys, past results don't dictate future returns. Illinois is way better than Mizzou this year. Maybe. Past results sometimes will, like, go look at the standings this year. Go look at the rankings. Past results do influence who you think is going to be better in the future. That's why we love college football. How many starters can you name on most teams across the country? Like, T-Bone, you have strong opinions on Clemson. How many starters can you truly name on Clemson this year? Like 5?
Oh, I think 1, Klubnik.
Okay. Yeah. Why do you think that they're going to disappoint relative to expectations?
Because of Klubnik.
And because of their past.
We've established that.
You've seen this in previous seasons. So, yeah, I think it matters. And the only time that it doesn't matter is when it's our team and we don't want it to matter. So, I think that holding the standard of this is all that is acceptable and anything else would be a massive failure and disappointment of 9+ wins at a program like Illinois that's done that one time, I believe it is, in the last 20 years, it's a little high. A little high of a bar to clear for me.
Nah, 9 wins.
I am similar to what we saw from Stuart Mandel. I'm not a hater on Illinois. I think they absolutely could win 8 or 9 games this year.
You pinpoint, though, that number of 12. And it's viable, it's practical, it's fun to think about, right? I understand, Tanner. I know where you're going with that.
I'm also like, I get the whole history thing. I think when the here and now when you're talking about these programs is very important. And that's why I think last year's Mizzou season was disappointing. And I know BK disagrees with that. But to me, they had everything that they could have wanted. Their offense was returning. They had Brady Cook. They had Luther Burden. Their running game was, as much as it was a question mark going into the year, it ended up being okay for them last year.
It was fine.
And the defense was solid, and yet they disappointed. Like, they had the SEC schedule that next year when the schedule kind of resorts itself, oh, my gosh, they are going to have a brutal slate.
It was one drive that led to that disappointment. If they finish the job against South Carolina, we don't view that season as much of a disappointment as we do. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what changed the year. It flipped on one drive.
That was the third loss, right?
Mm-hmm. Flipped on one drive that season. That was all it took for Mizzou.
Maybe if you had actually arrived in the first half at, A&M.
Yeah, but that was always going to be a tough game. Alabama was always going to be a tough game. I think most of us looked at those and were like, first road game for Texas A&M, going and play in front of 100,000 people. I didn't think they were going to lose it 41-10, to be clear. But, if you lose that game, it is what it is. If they go 10-2 last season, which is what they would have done had they defeated South Carolina on the road and they were on the path to doing so, we don't view that as a disappointing season because they probably make the playoff.
Yeah.
If they go 10-2 potentially. So, yeah, it really came down to one drive, and that's what I'm saying. These margins for teams like Mizzou and Illinois are so thin that to suggest that, like, if you go 8-4, it will be a failure of a season. I just disagree with it. It's your own process, though. It's your barometer. You get to come up with it.
I might burn my Illini gear if we go 8-4.
Some stupid podcast from Outkick said that Mizzou doesn't belong in the SEC. I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I think it's ridiculous. Mizzou has been every bit as successful as 80% of the conference over the last decade now since joining the SEC. Yes, they belong in the SEC. Is their game day atmosphere up to the same standards as many of the other teams in the conference, though? No. Like, what they say about Mizzou's environment, it's fair, man. How do I know that? Because Mizzou's actively trying to improve it. The stadium will be under construction on game days this year, in part because they also recognize, we got to up our game a little bit. We should be better in this department, and I think it will be better once they make these improvements. But Faurot Field is a fun place to watch a game. It is not the same as going to Neyland Stadium. It is not the same as going to Kyle Field. Those are different atmospheres than going to Mizzou, and I'm more than happy to admit that as a Mizzou fan.
Yeah, it's almost like they're like the other SEC team that doesn't belong, Vandy, who had their field under construction last year.
That's not even close to being the same.
And they have rocks instead of seats over there.
Top-rate academic institutions to boot.
Oh, I'm glad you guys are smart over there.
Yeah, see, the rocks thing I think is really stupid to care about. I think it's great to have a general admission area.
I just don't know if I could ever picture myself wanting to sit over there.
Well,
not taking a shot at it, but it looks uncomfortable.
Just to be clear, most people don't sit on the rocks. Most people sit on the lawn around the rocks.
I've seen people on the rocks.
Yeah, it happens occasionally.
It is comfy?
Not all that time. By the way, somebody on the text line, or on the YouTube chat rather, said, BK, did you take a gummy during the last break? Somebody else said, yeah, he's definitely feeling that way.
Oh, my.
I thought his Illinois stuff was a little
College football is the one thing that I think allows most people to get a little irrational. And that is my place of going to the fandom side of things. With T-Bone and Bradford on BK coming up next, what should the Cardinals be looking for in their manager? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario.
Sign up to play fantasy football with Adam Wainwright, Lars Nootbaar, and others during Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season. Help support some awesome charitable causes handpicked by the participating players. And show off your fantasy skills with a chance to win a variety of prizes. Space is limited.
You can find all the details on how to sign up for Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season now at 101ESPN.com.
want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
McGreevy faces unfamiliar foe. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Michael McGreevy will make his 12th career start Tuesday afternoon against Miami. However, the 25-year-old has never encountered Clayton McCullough's club. Cardinals Marlins first pitch set for 5:40 p.m. Last night, St. Louis captured Game 1 at Lone Depot Park 8-3. College football called a wrap on Mizzou's fall camp. Central Arkansas hits Columbia next week, kicking off that 2025 season professionally. Cincinnati dismisses Washington 31-17 behind 2 touchdown passes from backup Jake Browning. Joe Burrow played 3 possessions. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet plus Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So T-Bone, there was a piece earlier today from Ken Rosenthal over on The Athletic. I thought it was a really good questions and answers style of piece with Ollie Marmol via Ken Rosenthal. And he talked about his job status. He talked about how he has improved as a manager. Honestly, a lot of this is what we talked about with Ollie Marmol on the show about 10 days ago now on BK and Ferrario. So if you want to hear the actual audio format of something pretty similar to this interview, check that out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com or the free 101 ESPN app. You can also see it on YouTube if you want to watch it at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. But I think when you see stuff like this, generally the response is, fire Ollie, this guy sucks. They've missed the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years. Get rid of this bum. Something to that effect. I guess my question would be this. What do you think the Cardinals should be looking for in their manager? Whether that's your opinion or you're somebody that is very pro-Ollie or somewhere in between, set aside who they have as the manager right now. What should they be looking for at this point in their life cycle as an organization?
Well, what they should be looking for at this point in their life cycle is a manager that has almost a background in player development, knows how to get the best out of guys as they try and learn at the big league level. You know, the same kind of background Ollie Marmol has as a guy that started by managing in the minor leagues for the Cardinals because they're in a rebuild. They're entering into a rebuild post-2025 season. So when you're talking about what do rebuilding teams look for in a manager, it's not a guy that is this great tactician. And if I'm being honest, I don't know if those really exist in baseball anymore. But it's a guy that communicates well with a young clubhouse, is willing to keep that clubhouse together, and also is willing to and able to build a staff around him that helps him develop these players on the fly at the big league level. And to Ollie Marmol's credit, I believe that's what he's doing now. The locker room is together. He has been able to work with the young guys and get some positive results. As we played the cut about Nolan, or he talked about Nolan Gorman earlier today on KMOX. Nolan Gorman's been a success story for the St. Louis Cardinals. What they've ultimately gotten out of Matthew Liberatore, though there are questions about his velo dipping off later in starts as we get deeper into this season, has been an overwhelming success for the St. Louis Cardinals. And it just comes down to, okay, is Ollie Marmol the guy that you want to develop these younger players? And I think the answer for the current regime and the upcoming regime of Chaim Bloom is going to say yes as they enter into a rebuild here in St. Louis.
Yeah. I think so much of the criteria of what they would be looking for if they didn't have Ollie Marmol in place is somebody that is like Ollie Marmol.
Mm-hmm.
He just happens to have been here while they've gone through this stretch of games, or the stretch of seasons, really, where it hasn't been up to snuff. I can't push back on the idea that Ollie Marmol has been overly successful in the win-loss record. However, I think any manager that you look at will have some of this same stain on their resume somewhere. Like, people bring up Joe Maddon, right? Joe Maddon is a guy that we hear a lot about, or at least did early on in the time when we heard that Chaim Bloom was going to be coming in because they had the history in Tampa Bay together. Joe Madden in 2014 went 77-85 in Tampa Bay. Early on in his tenure, can I read you his win-loss record his first 2 years there, T-Bone?
It couldn't have been good because I think they were in a rebuild.
61-101.
Oh.
66-96. He also had a season in which they won 84 games, 77 games, and then in Chicago, by the end of his tenure there, things had gone so sour that they all knew we have to go our separate ways. In L.A., he won 26 games in the COVID season, then 77 games, and then was fired after 51 games. So he doesn't have any of the same resume questions that we have right now for Ollie Marmol. I know some people bring up, like, hey, Bruce Bochy. Bruce Bochy is a proven winner.
I've got his numbers pulled up because he was the example I was going to use. The final 5 years of Bruce Bochy's tenure with the San Francisco Giants, by the way, where he won all those World Series, 84 wins, missed the playoffs. 87 wins, made the playoffs, and ended up losing in the playoffs in the NLDS. And then 2017, 64-98, then 73-89, 77-85, and then he quote-unquote retired in San Francisco and was out of the game until he gets to Texas, where 90 wins, ends up winning the World Series. Last year, 78 wins, missed the playoffs. This year, 2 games below 500, probably going to miss the playoffs.
No, we can just do it with a guy that's managed here. How about Tony La Russa? Now viewed as one of the greatest managers in Cardinals history, but early on in his tenure, he was not as beloved. In the late 90s, he was doing a lot of losing while he was the manager of the Cardinals. That first year won 88 games, but then 73, 83, 75. Finally, they figure out who they ultimately became in the early 2000s, and then, Albert Pujols got here, and you started seeing the stretch of winning. 95, 93, 97, 105, 100 wins. Like, they did a whole lot of winning under him. He also had that 2007 season where he was at the helm, and they were not the same team that year. The year before, in 2006, they won the World Series, but that season would not be remembered as fondly if the postseason didn't go the way that it did. They won 83 games in the regular season that year. So they did have a 3-year stretch, 83, 78, and 86 wins. Then won 91, and then went back to 86 wins in 2010. So that's a 5-year stretch where almost every season they were winning fewer than 90 games. You can have the best manager in the world. If you don't have the talent that is necessary to win in this league, it doesn't matter. The manager is only as good as the players that you give him. Now, some managers are so bad that they can screw it all up. I absolutely believe that. I think you can have a manager that ends up not getting the best out of your team.
Are you thinking of TLR's replacement?
No, I didn't think he was a great manager. I was on the record about that. But I think there are managers in baseball, even today, that you can look at and say, they're going to screw it up somehow. They're going to get into a big spot, and they will melt down. I don't think Ollie is that. I think Ollie, at a minimum, is going to get whatever his talent is. Will he maximize it? I would argue yes. I think he has basically maximized the talent that they have on the team this year. I think he basically maximized the talent that they had in 2022. I think he's shown the ability to do that. If others disagree with me, all right, but can we at least agree that he can get whatever the talent is? Whatever that, like, just squeeze out whatever the talent is there. I think he can. So if I was in Chaim Bloom's shoes, I would not be making a change this offseason at the managerial position. I would probably give him an extension. I know nobody wants to hear that, but he has 1 year left on his contract. It is very rare for a manager to go into the final year of his contract with a team. So I would extend him. I would keep him here. I'll probably do like a 2-year extension.
That's what I was thinking.
And that effectively gives you the next 2 years to make your decision on Ollie Marmol while you continue through this rebuild and find out, is this the right guy for the job whenever we start to do the winning again?
Yeah, and like, even if you're thinking from the Chaim Bloom perspective, and let's say he did, just for this example, have some questions of Ollie Marmol, what is the benefit of doing this process when you're entering a rebuild? Just wait until you get towards the back end of it, and then if you think, hey, we're missing expectations, boom, then you can go out and hire your guy. Because it's not like you're getting good PR by moving on from Ollie Marmol when you're also tearing the team down to the studs for a rebuild. So I don't see, even if you were questioning it, if you were Chaim Bloom, I don't know that there is going to be that benefit of making that move outside of, it's just one guy that I worked with that I kind of trust maybe a little bit more. But I don't think that's the case. Him and Ollie, and Ollie says it in that piece, get breakfast every time that he's in town. I think they probably think baseball close to the same wavelength. to where I think if you're Heim, you continue with it. I probably agree you do a 2-year extension. It won't be a popular PR move, but you do it so you don't have a lame duck manager, so there's no questions in that locker room. And it's only 2 years, so once you get towards the back end of the rebuild, then you can reassess once you get there.
Somebody on the text line from the 479. I'll never understand why you guys are so attached to this guy. It's not so much that I'm attached to him as it is I just don't know what you're going to do to change the outlook for this team with just a managerial change. The Cubs 2 years ago made a huge managerial change. They go out and they get what some believed to be the best manager in the game in Craig Counsell. They didn't get good until they changed their players. They went out this past offseason, got Kyle Tucker. PCA explodes onto the scene. Bush becomes a different kind of player. Matthew Boyd gets healthy and looks really great this year. That's what's changed for the Cubs. The manager didn't change from last year to this year. The players did. So my point is, I think you have a good manager. I think he's pretty good at this. So I would just keep him here, retain those services, and figure out the stuff that's not good right now. Change the stuff that's not working for your team. And once you do that, I think the manager will be able to get the best out of them. So I'm not tied to him necessarily. I just don't think he's your problem. I think you've got other issues that are much bigger for this team to fix right now. Coming up next, the Rewind here on 101 ESPN.
It's an MLB weekend on ESPN. Yankees and Red Sox. Game 1, Saturday. First pitch, 12:05. Then Sunday, it's Game 2. First pitch, 6:10. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN.
Hey, it's BK from my friends at Victory Men's Health. It is time for you to unlock your inner champion, and they are the place to do it. It's at Victory Men's Health. Check them out today. You can go online to victorymenshealth.com. When you get there, you can learn all about the programs that they have to offer, weight loss goals that you're trying to meet, low testosterone symptoms. If you're feeling them, they can test those levels for you at Victory Men's Health. They can also help you with erectile dysfunction. They can tell you a little bit about their vitamin infusion plans, their supplement shop, red light therapy program, cardiovascular testing. It's all available today at victorymenshealth.com. That's where you go to book that first appointment. Incredibly easy process. Put in your name, email, phone number. Tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and tell them what it means for you to unlock your inner champion. For me, it was going over there, getting my micronutrient lab tests for me, checking out where I was at on my testosterone levels as well, finding out what it was for me to unlock my inner champion. You can do the same thing at Victory Men's Health, and check them out online at victorymenshealth.com.
the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Hey, if you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
101 ESPN app's free to download, super easy to use, and that is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. By the way, you can sign up to play fantasy football with Wayno, Newt, and others during Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season. Help support some awesome charitable causes, handpicked by the participating players, and show off your fantasy skills with a chance to win a variety of prizes. You can find all of the details on how to sign up for Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season now at 101ESPN.com. T-Bone Cardinals back in action this evening. They are on the road at Miami, having coming off the win yesterday against the Marlins. They threw that one away. Cardinals back in action tonight with McGreevy on the mound. Do you think they will be able to get this one with McGreevy on the mound against Edward Cabrera, a young, interesting right-handed pitcher?
I will say yes, because the Marlins were not a good baseball team. Watching them last night, throwing the ball all over the place. So I'll say yes, not so much because of what the Cardinals do, but what the Marlins do.
I think that the Marlins will get this one. I think you finish it with a final score of 5-3. Edward Cabrera, I think, is the exact kind of pitcher that could make things interesting for about 6 innings against the Cardinals. Then you get to their bullpen. We'll see what ends up taking place there. But I would expect a slow start from the Cardinals offensively.
Over under 8,000 fans announced attendance tonight.
Over, but not by a lot. Announced attendance. Actual attendance well under.
Definitely under.
Actual attendance well under for this one. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. For T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We'll talk to you guys at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN has your chance to win a pair of free tickets to this year's